IB Nation, welcome back to another edition of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I am Brian Driscoll. That is Sean Davis, and we are here to talk about the Notre Dame jersey scrimmage. Before we get started, folks, like my guy Homer TD says, hit that like button. Everybody, we are rocking and rolling. Sean, as you can tell, I'm a little fired up today because we got to see some real football, man. We got to see some real football today inside Notre Dame Stadium. Huge shout out. I'm very critical of Notre Dame sports information at times about the access and things like that. But man, they gave us access to if they said to me, Brian, what's one, you can only be at one practice, one, and we're going to let you see the whole thing. What would it be? And it would be today. So huge shout out to Notre Dame for allowing us to be at today's practice. I'm fired up. We got to see a lot today, Sean. And, we're going to dive into just overall thoughts. We'll talk defense. We'll talk offense. But first, big picture, man, just with everything that's been going on in our lives and everything and just all this different stuff, my man, it was just good to be in the stadium watching some football today, man. We needed it, and it was just good. Great to see this football team out there competing and battling, and we're going to have a lot to say about what they did. But it just, first and foremost, it was a blessing to be out there, and I'm very happy we got to see what we saw today.
Absolutely. It was a great time to be out there and to watch this team. We felt like this team had a lot of hope connected to it, and that was kind of manifested right in front of our eyes today on both sides of the football. And this is just the beginning, right? This is the spring. I expect the team to take another step forward in the fall when we see them. So it's a lot for Notre Dame fans to be extremely excited about today.
Practice 11. Today was practice 11 of 15. Of course, the 15th is the blue gold game. That counts as one of the 15 practices. So we got a chance to see a lot, Sean. In the format for today, Sean and I will dive into section one. We'll talk about what we just kind of saw big picture, what we thought of the competition today. Obviously, Marcus Freeman said that the defense won the scrimmage. We would agree with that assessment. But there was a lot to like in both phases of the game. We'll dive into that, just overall what we thought of the team. Then we'll talk about the defense, which when you win the day the way that they did, you deserve to go first. And then we'll wrap up with the offense. And I'm just going to warn some of y'all now, if you are someone that gets easily triggered by criticism of number 18 on offense, you're probably not going to tune in for the last section of the practice, of the report, because you're going to get triggered constantly during that period of time. But overall, Sean, just want to talk about this football team, man. We'll get into specifics of what the defense did and specifics of the offense and individual players and coaching and those type of things. But there just were some things that really stood out today. And the first thing that I want to talk about is just, we've talked about this more and more each year, but this team just keeps getting more and more and more athletic. And as we're sitting there today and we're just watching the playmakers, like, defense won the day. They had the better day. 2 huge plays, just a lot of good things. But, man, the offense had a lot of guys making plays too today. And you just see this, Sean. It's athleticism and playmakers. That's the thing that you had said to me as we're walking out. Like, man, there's just a lot of guys making plays out there today. This is just a really athletic football team and a football team that has playmakers, a running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, D-line, linebacker, corner, safety. I mean, there's legitimate playmakers all over the place, Sean. And that's the first thing that really stuck out to me when I'm watching this football team go through their work today.
Absolutely. Playmakers all over the field. And what stood out to me as well, I said this is a much better product for us to watch than it was the previous 2 springs. Like, that stands out. And for me, that translates to kids that are coming on official visits, whether they're sophomores or juniors, they're watching a better product. And it's a more inviting product to say, I can see myself in that guy. I can see myself in that guy. Or I can see myself the way they use that particular player. So now your recruiting takes a step forward. Look, we're going to talk about the quarterback and what took place today. And ladies and gentlemen, it is one practice.
Right.
It's one practice. So we're talking about one practice. And you still will get triggered by some of the things.
Good and bad that
are going to be.
Because somebody that we're going to talk about today is going to Heisman Trophy for the freshman. You know what I mean? Like, it's one practice.
Exactly. But with that being said, look, 5 minutes into the practice, I'm like, wait a minute. That's like 4 receivers they've already hit.
Right.
4 different receivers. Like, I haven't seen this before. They didn't even target the tight end probably until like the second or third series.
Right.
And that was something that, and then the changing in formations and then the motions and groups come. We saw 11, we saw 12, we saw 21. I think we saw a little bit of 22. I think one time down by the goal line,
Mm-hmm.
it might have been in 22. So it's a lot to be excited about. But the overall theme is this is a very athletic and a very talented team, much more talented than I would probably say we would have to go back to the last playoff team, maybe, to see this amount of talent on both sides of the football.
Oh, I think you'd have to go back to the
Further back.
first playoff team,
Yeah.
honestly. I think you'd have to go back to the first playoff team when you look at just kind of playmakers all over the place, at skill positions, lines, defensively, return game, all those type of things. I think you'd have to go back to the 18 team. And there's some areas where this team, at least athletically, is better than that team. Now, are they going to be as good of a team? I don't know. That remains to be seen. It's April 13th, and they're not even in practice 15 yet, right? So we're not going to do the whole getting too carried away thing just yet. But I'll be honest with you, Sean, on the drive home, it was hard for me to not get a little bit worked up about it, and because of what we saw. The other thing I like too, Sean, this was a very competitive practice. And look, defense won the Jersey scrimmage. Marcus Freeman talked about that. Even if you didn't have the 2 pick sixes, even if they were just interceptions or third down pass breakups, the defense still won the day. They had more wins, in my opinion, than the offense. But what I liked about today, Sean, is that it wasn't just the defense went out and dominated. And a lot of people say, we know defense always wins these type of things. And I'm like, well, not really, because the defense didn't win the last 2 Jersey scrimmages that Marcus Freeman was a part of. So it's not really something that you always see from the defense. But what I liked, however, is I've always said this: when one side of the ball dominates, that's not really good for your football team, because it means the other side struggled. And we didn't see that today. Yes, the defense won, and there were stretches where they were really good, but there was also some stretches where the offense was moving the ball a little bit. And if you don't make this one mistake or that one mistake, you can put that thing in the end zone. And then once the offense got going, I mean, they scored 3 out of 4 drives at one point in time. And so I would be wondering how they do the scoring, because I could have seen a scenario where if Angeli would have led them on a touchdown drive at the end of that thing instead of throwing that pick, would the offense have won the scrimmage? So the point being, it was really competitive. There was a battle both ways. It was a physical practice, and you just kind of liked how they went back and forth today. And that's something that stood out to me too. It wasn't just one side overwhelmed the other. Both sides of the ball today had some really good moments, and that's excited to see, because like you said to me, Sean, you said, look, here's one thing I'll say. We know this defense is going to be good. So to watch the offense do some things they did was encouraging, because that ultimately, and we'll get into specifics of the offense, but ultimately that's going to be the side of the ball that determines how good this football team is. So to see that back and forth today in practice 11 was a good sign.
And I know everyone is seeing on social media and hearing the reports about the pick sixes. Let's put that in context a little bit. Both pick sixes came after the offense. I'll give one example. One of the first pick six, the offense started on the 5-yard line and moved the ball all the way down to about the 23-yard line.
Yeah, it was a 60, 70-yard.
Yeah, it's a 70-yard pick six. So it's like you're talking about, this was against the number 1 defense.
Right.
They started off inside the 5. They moved the ball all the way down. And this goes back to what we talked about, and I'm sure we're going to dig into it. You know what I love about this offense and them facing this defense consistently? It's not too many defenses they're going to see all year that are better.
There's not one in the regular season.
Yes.
And with all due respect to
this
some of the teams they play.
This offense, which you'll get into when we talk about the quarterbacks a little more, creates big play opportunities to score points. This offense isn't trying to go on consistent 8, 9, 10 play drives.
Right.
Like, they can do that. They could have done that today if the right read post snap had been made on it. There you go.
We have plenty to talk about. And they weren't running, other than the goal line, they weren't running a lot of the read zone stuff.
Right.
Other than near the goal line. And
right.
You don't have your starting quarterback didn't play today either. Let's not forget that either. Your starting quarterback didn't play. Jaden Harrison didn't play. Jaden Thomas didn't play. Mitchell Evans didn't play. Those are some. Bo Collins wasn't there. there's some dudes left to kind of be added to this offensive football team. And so you start to get excited about it because you say to yourself, if they can move the ball against this defense, this team's going to be pretty good. But that's actually something that kind of excites me, Sean, because here's something that I've you got to be impressed with Mike Mickens and the job he's done the last 2 years, getting those corners to play the way they were, despite on a daily basis going against relatively poorly coached receiving cores that at times struggled with really having top level talent. And so they're getting pushed a lot more this spring. The offense is always getting pushed by this defense, but you're seeing an offensive line that's pretty big and battling against the defensive line, and a defensive line that's battling against the offensive line. You're seeing linebackers and running backs going toe to toe and pass split, pickup. And again, I just go back to this is the of the Marcus Freeman tenure. This is the team that I look at that says both sides are pushing the other more than we've seen in past years. There were spots where the offense was pushing the defense. I mean, 2022, that offensive line was giving the defense work. You know what I mean? But last year, a tackle maybe, you know what I mean? But that's kind of what you're seeing, Sean, is and it's a group of quarterbacks that as a whole is a little bit more mobile than last year's quarterbacks.
Yes.
And defensively, you're seeing the youth of the Marcus Freeman recruiting efforts and Chad Bowden recruiting efforts are starting to now really take hold. You're seeing a lot more of the sophomore class, the freshman class even coming in today. And those are the things that get me excited about this football team, Sean. And because, again, what does today's practice mean? Big picture, the result of today's practice, the only impact it has on this football team is who wears the blue jerseys for the rest of the spring. That's it, right? It has no impact on, well, they're going to win a national championship because of this one practice and the result of this one practice. But this one practice is indicative of something greater, and that's what has me excited, right? It's like if the D-line would have had a bad day, does it mean the defensive line isn't going to be good? No, because we've seen this group be really good. If, let's just say, I'm trying to think of a guy, if Xavier Watts got beat for a couple touchdowns today, does that mean Xavier Watts isn't going to be an All-American again in the fall? No, it doesn't, because we know what he can do, right? So, I mean, you have to take the results of the practice, the specific results of who completed this and who threw that and who made this play. That doesn't matter as much to me. Big picture, it's confirmation of things we have seen. And we'll talk a lot about Jaden Greathouse. Him playing well today doesn't make me think he's going to be a star. Him doing this on top of everything we've seen this spring and what I've heard is confirmation of the fact that I think he's got a chance to be a star. Does that make sense? And so when I look at this football team, it's like, okay, we're confirming things that we thought about this team. It's not a confirmation bias. It's here's what I think. Now I'm open to see if it's real or not. And in some areas, it's like, what I think is real. And in other areas, like this is still a work in progress. Because, Sean Stiers had an article at Irish Breakdown, and the title was, Notre Dame is still a work in progress following the Jersey scrimmage. And it's absolutely correct. This team is still a work in progress because this is practice 11, right? This is practice 11. Now, what I like about it is this is the most intense practice of the entire spring, including the blue gold game, because there's a lot more at stake. There's a lot more, like I said, on the line. There's a lot more hitting. I mean, they were full tackling today.
Yeah.
I mean, they tackled more today than Ohio State did in their spring game. I mean, so it was a legitimately competitive practice. And I'll just be honest, the whistles weren't nearly as, quick for the quarterbacks today as we've seen in the past either. Like they were letting them actually bang, get to they were actually waiting on contact a lot of times before they blow that whistle. Now that meant a couple times I actually thought there would have been sacks if they didn't blow the whistle and they let the play go out, which is actually smart. Marcus Freeman talked about this. They didn't just blow the whistle dead because there might have been a backside tag from Boubacar Traore on somebody. Let the quarterback run around and make a play because going back and looking at it that defensively you had that one down. But, this gives the offense a chance to go make a play. So just overall, Sean, love the athleticism of this football team from what we saw today. That translates no matter what the execution was today. That'll translate playmakers all around, incredibly competitive practice. And you're just starting to see this team look more and more and more like what we think Marcus Freeman wants it to be, which is a long, athletic football team with a lot of swagger. players that have attitudes, and not attitudes like but like, hey, I'm a pretty good football player. I know it, and I'm going to go show everyone that I'm a good football player. You're seeing more of that from the transfers, from the young guys he's recruited, just overall, and it's infectious because and we also saw today a lot of depth at most positions. There's some where it's not. I broke that down last week, but you're seeing, man, like you think about all the receivers they're missing today, and you're like, the first two receiving groups were still pretty good, and they didn't have Keedron Young today. Jabron Payne didn't play a ton, but you're still like, dude, they're loaded at running back. No Mitchell Evans today, but you're like, man, a lot of people would love to have Cooper Flanagan and Eli Raridan as their 1-2 punch at tight end. So just really like the depth we're seeing from this football team too at most positions. There's a couple that are a little bit, we'll see. But just love the competitiveness of this practice.
Wouldn't you say, since we're talking about the overall thing before we get into the specifics, what we saw today was punch, counter punch consistently the entire practice. And when I say that, I'm talking about chunk play, negative play. Negative play, chunk play. It was actually amazing to watch. Like the offense get backed up to like 2nd and 13 and come right back with 2 straight plays. And then to have a 4th and 3 and the defense respond and get a turnover on downs. And then the offense comes right back out and hits another chunk play. Like you're starting to see the culture of this team. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a lot of people out there that owe Marcus Freeman an apology. When he came before you all and said, we're not the team, we're not the offense that I envisioned. And everybody was like, I don't believe him. All he wants to do is run the ball and play close, low-scoring games. All right. You're about to see a team that looks totally different than his first 2 years as the head coach. He told you, he was being honest. This is not what I envisioned offensively.
Right.
Now you're about to see his vision come into fruition, in my opinion, in this 3rd year, because we've seen it all spring.
Yes. Sean, you hit something really well. I love the counter punching aspect. Like you'd get a tackle. I'm getting ready to pull up the play-by-play that I was tracking from today's practice. And you kind of hit it. Like there was a couple 3rd and 9s where the offense converts and you're just like, man, they battle back from that mistake, and come out and make a big play. And those are things you like to see, man. It's where you got, and we saw it on both sides too. Like the one drive you were talking about, Notre Dame starts inside their own 5, get a couple short runs to move, to get out a little bit. Then they hit a little snag concept to Cooper Flanagan to get themselves a 1st down. Next thing you know, Jaden Greathouse with big play, big play, inside zone on 1st and 10 for 5 yards. They're driving, things are going good. Boom, pick 6. Right. So that counter punching thing was there, and you absolutely nailed that. I mean, and it just gets you kind of fired up about what this team can be. I mean, we saw it with the touchdown drive that CJ Carr had, where the drive starts off, CJ gets sacked, Drake Bowen comes off the edge, sacks CJ. They get into a long down and distance situation. He moves around, gets pressured, but he hits Cam Williams for a big play touchdown on the very next play. Right? Like that's what you saw today, both ways. I think that's a great observation, Sean. That's that counter punching thing is what you like to see. Another example where the defense had it. This was a drive where Steve Angeli's in the game. He hits a completion for 14 yards, a completion for 10 yards, it's a completion for 12 yards, then it's sack, incomplete pass, you go for a field goal attempt, miss it. It was that counter punch that we saw from both teams was fun to watch. It really was. And that's what you need to be, because as you said very early on, if this team is going to be what Notre Dame fans want it to be, it has to be more of a both sides dominating, because otherwise we're going to get into the season and the defense is going to be great for 10 games, like every other great defense, but they're going to have a game or two, one where they're not that good and one where they're solid but not great. And I'm thinking to last year's Louisville and Clemson games in this instance. The year before, USC game and, a couple. I don't care who you are, that's going to happen. The thing that's killed Notre Dame in the past is when those things happened, they were going to lose because their offense couldn't pick them up and carry them.
Exactly.
That's what's been missing at Notre Dame. Now, there's a long way to go to get to that point offensively, but today was the most encouraged I've been about can you get to that point? And, we're going to see how that goes. We're going to talk about the defense first. But before we do that, folks, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. I put a big intel drop last night, Sean, on the message board about the team. Have my full recap of practice. It was like about 2,700 words. Recap of practice is on the message board too. I'll eventually publish it later on the main website, but this is why you need to be on the message board, folks, because people in the chat will tell you that intel piece last night has people fired up. And this is what I've been getting from all my sources. I have another one coming up after the spring, but there was some stuff, Sean, that was just too juicy not to put up right now, man. I had to get it up. And you can find that only if you're a premium member at boards@irishbreakdown.com. So, Sean, I like to talk about the offense first normally because I'm an offensive guy. Played quarterback, played receiver, coached offense my whole life. But when you win the jersey scrimmage, you deserve to get to go first.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've carried this football team for the last several years, you deserve to go first.
Yeah.
And we're going to start talking about the defense, Sean, and just kind of kicking things off. Marcus Freeman made a comment, and I'll kick this to you, Sean, because it's something you were bringing up between us when we were kind of game planning. Marcus Freeman made a comment after the practice, and I want to read the comment specifically, talking about the defense and it being year 3 and just kind of what he expects of the defense this season. And this is the comment he made. He says, he was talking about the offense versus the defense. Whereas for the offense, it's practice 11 of a new scheme. So they're going to be ahead defensively because a lot of returning players, year 3 compared to the offense, but the offense has done some really good things. And what you'll see from the offensive side is they're going to get every look imaginable. They're not playing against a Marcus Freeman defense that you're going to see a couple different things. You're going to see everything with Al Golden, and it's going to help them improve if they understand it, which I know they do. The coaches do. This is really good for you. So he was talking about it being good for the offense, but he was also making a very, very big point, which is this defense is going to throw some stuff at you. It really is. And what you're seeing also is Al Golden, from what I could tell today and what you observed, and I'm going to kick this to you because I want you to hammer on this one because this was something you'd brought up to us before. You are already starting to see him tailor what he's doing to the specific skill set of his team, especially the linebackers. And that's something that we definitely saw from this defense today.
You talk about dependability up front, and where's the inexperience that haven't played games that a lot of people are worried about in the defense is at the linebacker position. But where does he probably have the most depth when it comes to high-level talent? It's probably at the linebacker position. Literally, they go 6 deep, where you're talking about high-level players, extremely athletic players at the linebacker position, and knowing that he's not wasting time trying to make sure that they know everything. He already knows that they're going to have to play games in order to build up their knowledge from repetition. What he's doing is saying, I'm going to make sure I tailor this defense to make sure they play fast from the first snap of the first game. We're playing fast. We're coming after guys, right? And they have an aggressive attitude. We've seen great between Drake and Kingston. We saw three or four times, I would say, where they weren't blitzing, but they're delayed blitz because they didn't have any other responsibilities. Like, okay, I don't have any responsibility. Go. And the late pressure, yes, the late pressure just causes either an incompletion, a bad pass breakup, and you haven't seen that, right? And so that is what he's playing to. When was the last time we saw linebackers from Notre Dame closing in space and just wrapping up? They had a great tackling practice today.
Yes.
Great tackling practice today.
Which is surprising because it's such a young group.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, what I think it boils down to is kind of a theme that we talked a lot about early as a team, but it's very, very true of the defensive line. There are so many playmakers on this defense. Like, look, we talk about Benjamin Morrison all the time, and we talk about Christian Gray all the time, and rightfully so. I think they're going to be stars. Like, I mean, they threw one ball at Christian Gray today that I can remember, and he broke it up in the end zone. I don't remember them even testing him. I mean, the boundary receivers went 0 for 8 on targets today, and that's a big part of it was the fact that Christian and to a degree, Chance Tucker, had some really good moments today. Now there was a play where a boundary guy got beat, but it wasn't a boundary receiver. I'll explain that later. But who was it that broke the thing open today, though? It wasn't Christian. It wasn't Benjamin Morrison. He's not out there. It wasn't Xavier Watts. It wasn't Drake Bowen. It wasn't, RJ Oben. It wasn't Howard Cross. It wasn't Riley Mills. It wasn't who was? It was Jaden Mickey.
Yeah.
And it was just like you look at the first play of the way the scrimmage started, it was the first team offense against the second team defense. And then the next series, so they went 6 plays. And the next series was the number 1 defense against the number 2 offense. First play from scrimmage with the number 1 offense or number 1 defense, they throw a swing pass to Jadarian Price. And I looked at you, I was like, who made that play? And you're like, that's Drake Bowen. Because, I thought it was Drake. But I was like, how did the Mike linebacker get all the way out there? You know what I mean? And, we saw, and then all of a sudden, randomly, you're just like, oh, wow. Did you guys just see Jordan Clark come screaming off the edge for what would have been an easy sack in that game? You know what I mean? There's just playmakers all over the place on this defense, Sean. And it gives Al Golden, as a defensive coordinator, when you have that many guys can make plays, you can't just avoid Benjamin Morrison and expect to just go out there and ball. You don't just have Isaiah Foskey, so you just avoid him all day and slide. Remember 2 years ago, they would just slide their protection Isaiah and be like, all right, you can't do anything about it. You can't do that to this defense now. We saw it a little bit last year, and we saw it today. And as much as I love J.D. Bertrand and Maris Leofau, this linebacking core is just different, Sean. I mean, again, now here's what we don't know. We don't get the opportunity of recording the practice, going back and rewatching and being like, misfit there. He should have been in the B gap here. So we're not evaluating the necessarily the play-by-play correctness of their assignments. It's impossible to do that when you're trying to watch both sides of the ball and you don't have film to go back over and watch. But what you can evaluate is the fact that these guys were around the ball all day. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we saw from this defense, Sean, is you can't ignore the fact that this group just flies around and there's just somebody different making us. We didn't see Boubacar Traore do a thing all practice. And then all of a sudden, 3 out of 4 snaps, he's just crushing somebody and getting to the quarterback. You know what I mean? Like, don't hear a thing from Josh Burnham for 3 series, and all of a sudden he has 2 out of 3 plays, he just blows up the other side of the ball. You know what I mean? Like, how do you do that? How do you handle that as an offensive football team? When there's always somebody different that's making plays. And you have to be that way to be a big-time defense. And that's the thing is, I actually think the offense did a lot of really good things today. They still lost. Why? Because this is a really talented defense with playmakers all over. That's why I'm so excited, Sean. It's not like, hey, guess what? The defense is going to be good again. It's because there was that battle, because this unit was tested by the offense. But it wasn't just this one guy stepping up every time. And this defense is still a worker. I mean, no Benjamin Morrison today, right? I mean, no Rod Hurd today. Mm-hmm. But when you watch this group play, we didn't see Howard Cross and Riley Mills play a ton today. They played more than we've seen all spring. No Gabriel Rubio today. And you start seeing all that, and you're like, man, this defense is also going to get better. But just the athleticism, and we've been trending this way for a few years. Each year, you and I talk about this is the fastest defense since whenever. Yeah. And it's like, why do we keep saying that? Because each year you see an uptick in that regard. And, we watched Bryce Young for a play, and you're like, this kid has no idea what he's doing yet. But wow. But wow. There was a play where Sean Sevillano comes off the ball. He must have been pissed at somebody. Yeah. Because he threw the running back. Somebody I think might have said something to him, and he got mad because he just comes off and just takes Pat Coogan and just get out of my way. I'm blowing this sucker up. And then the running back bumps into him and he just throws the guy. I'm like, okay, somebody pissed Sean Sevillano off. You know what I mean? And it was just always something who was that? Who? And it makes it hard to we're scribbling notes as fast as we can, but it also speaks to why we have such high expectations for this defense. And we just saw it today. It's just guys flying around the ball, aggressiveness, attacking. And there were things we saw today, which we won't get into specifics, that were a lot different coverage-wise than what we've seen in the past. And that, again, is the evidence that Al Golden is tweaking things to fit the specific players that he has in the secondary, but also that it's allowing him to even be a little bit more aggressive, even with his linebackers, than we've seen in the past. And again, we won't talk specifics because I don't want to get in trouble, nor would I be happy if I was a coach and somebody was doing that.
Yeah.
But you could just see what some of the different coverage structures they showed today post snap that you're like, okay, that's a little bit different than what we've seen from in the past. But you're like, who's on the field? Oh yeah, that guy was on the field. Makes sense.
But
And you're playing to it. You're playing to it.
Anticipate that. I think the last time we did a show together, we talked about having more athleticism on the back end as a combination. And we said that has to free Al Golden up to get in the lab and be even more aggressive, especially with the linebackers. And we're starting to see that every practice, like, yo, these linebackers are coming downfield. Then we hear Max Bullock last week saying it's just not good enough anymore to do your job as a linebacker here.
I loved
when I heard that,
by the way.
I was like, hey, we've been waiting to hear that. Like, you just can't hide on film by saying, well, I did my job. No, take a chance. Go make play in the backfield.
And he said calculated, wasn't it?
Risks.
Like, wasn't it calculated risks? Yes. And in Al Golden's defense, you need that. Like that's something that you need. And look, we haven't even talked about Jalen Snead yet, who had like a sack on like one of the first plays of the game and then had ended the scrimmage with an interception, right? That's the hard part with how the defense played today. Not just that it was dominant, because I don't think that it was dominant today, because the offense played well, in my opinion. But the reason it played so well and why we're so encouraged by it is because it was so many different guys stepping up and making plays in different situations. And even something where like Micah Bell makes a mistake and he bites on a slant and go by Chris Mitchell. And so what does he do? He knows this is cover one. I got no help. So what does he do? He reaches around and yanks Chris Mitchell down and keeps him, or like grabs the jersey and keeps him running by him. And you're like, oh, come on, Mike. Now, there's things Mike Mickens will correct about not getting beat on the slant and go, but that heads up thing of like, I have no help. If I'm beating her here, it's touchdown. And like even little things like that, where you're just like, okay, this is a defense that understands how to play the game. And like there were things like Jordan Clark, Sean, I loved it. They're lining up and it's a receiver inside and a receiver outside. And you see Jordan Clark tell the corner to move in and he moves in and you're like, dude, there's nobody uncovered. And all of a sudden you see the receiver motioning. Like, oh, he already knew what was happening. Now, part of that is they see this offense every day. But it's just he knows when they line up like this, it's just that football IQ that this kid has. And did he look like a kid that is only like RJ Open looked like a kid who's 11 practices into learning new things today? That's what he looked like. Like he's still learning to play tighter to the tackle and setting the edge and some things like that. Like RJ Open is still learning and adjusting to this defense. Jordan Clark looked like a kid who's a 6-year senior and has been in this defense for a couple of years. That's what he looked like to me today. And you're like, okay, this is going to be good. This is going to be all right, because that's such an important position. And we did see that. We'll say it. Saw a lot more 3 linebacker defenses today.
You saw that.
Part of that is because they had to play Micah Bell outside a little bit more at times, so the slot depth isn't as great. But the other part of it is your 2 rovers are freaky athletes that they trust in space. Jalen Snead and Jay Nalsbury. That's the other part of it. And man, it was. And I think that at times has also helped the offense make some plays in the pass game.
Yeah.
But overall, and again, look, it wasn't a perfect day because by any stretch, and there's going to be a lot of things correct on film. You're going to hear us talk about, boy, he missed that guy who was wide open on a post route for a touchdown, or well, somebody had to got beat on that play or make a mistake on that play for that to be true. So this was but that's actually something, Sean, that I kind of like, is the fact that this defense was not necessarily like perfect today. I want to talk a little bit about the linebacker. We talked about the linebackers. Let's talk about the D line today. A little bit. Let's get into some specifics of this unit today, Sean. Obviously, Howard and Riley had their moments when they were in the field. We'll start inside. I got two guys that stood out to me today. One in particular, Donovan Heinisch. Yes. It was really good today, Sean. He was very active in the backfield a lot, and he has the same pissed off attitude that his brother has, and I absolutely love it. And what I mean by that is Donovan always played. Kurt played like he, this is how I feel like Kurt played, with the attitude that before every game, he would listen to our podcasts where we told people he wasn't that good or he wasn't, you know what I mean? And he would take like every insult, and I mean everyone. He'd take every insult or every criticism that everyone ever lobbied at him. He just have that in his head. This isn't actual, but like this is how he plays. Listens to that the entire pregame, and he goes out there and plays pissed off. That's how Kurt played. Donovan was just like that today. I mean, just not only was he making plays, but he just looked mad when he was playing. And if I'm not hammering this home a lot, if I'm not quite landing the plane correctly, that's a good thing. That's why Kurt's in the NFL right now. It's not because he's 6'6", 305 and athletic like Jerry Tillery. Yeah. You know what I mean?
They almost have that Kurt Rambis effect. Remember, like Kurt Rambis didn't even fit with the Showtime Lakers athletic. He just like, wow, how is he the starting power forward on this legacy, this legendary team? But those are the Heinishes, man. Like, you don't think that they look athletic enough. They're definitely not big enough or strong enough, but somehow, some way. Look at what Kurt did immediately when he got to the NFL. Like, he shocked everybody. He's starting on the defensive line for the Texans. And it's like before he got his injury. And it's the same thing with Donovan. He's just been coming on. We heard he started to flash a little bit last spring.
Mm-hmm. And in the fall, when Rubio was out, they were able to still kind of maintain because Don was able to come in and give you some good minutes.
Yeah.
He looks bigger now, and he's another year in the weight room, which is going to be good. And as you said, but he's more athletic than Kurt was. Mm-hmm. And that's what allows him, in my opinion, to even be even more of a playmaker, which we saw today.
And you need guys like that. They can be seen as like the equalizers of a roster. And what I mean by that is it's hard for guys that are more talented to see dudes like that being impactful. Like, do I have to work hard? I see him working hard and making an impact. I can't sit on my laurels. I have to work hard as well. They're like the equalizers because you have no excuse. They have every excuse not to go hard. They can easily say, man, I'm not good enough. I'm not big enough. But they don't. You need that on your roster, man. You need guys like that. And sometimes those attitude guys end up being like the most important cogs on championship teams.
Yeah. No doubt. There's no question. I mean, we talk about the 2018 team, and we talk about all the NFL players they had on that team, and you go back and look and you watch the 19 team, and you're just like, that guy just looks different. He doesn't look like a baller. 41 doesn't look like the other guys. He doesn't have Julian McGuire and Khalid Kareem's insane length and Jerry Tillery's length and athleticism and all this stuff. He just would make plays when you need him to make plays. And now Donovan also has the same issue at Curtis. He's not the biggest guy in the world. And so what I saw today too is he's anchoring better. Like, he understands, okay, I've got two guys coming at me today right now in this play. I can't give ground. And that battle, getting used to that's when Kurt really kind of became a more impactful player, is because Kurt would have some flashy plays and they get driven off the ball 4 or 5 yards. And when he finally got older, especially, he's a pumped up 300-plus pounder. Kurt Heinisch is going to not be anywhere close to 300 pounds when he's done playing football. Donovan's going to be the same way. That you've got to learn to, okay, I'm going to get double teamed. I got to learn how to handle it. And I thought Donovan did a nice job taking those things on today as well. Sean Sevillano, I thought flashed today, Sean.
Oh, absolutely.
He had some moments today. And you can tell when he's on the field, there's never a question about who made that play, because he is by far the most enormous kid on the – I mean, he is all the other kids are kind of like these big, tall, sturdy, just the guys you want to get off the bus. And then there's Sean Sevillano, who's like 6'1" this way and 6'1" that way. I mean, that dude is a bowling ball. But he showed some stuff today, Sean.
Different attitude as well. You talked about the nastiness he brings up front. I love it. And you just talk about, I thought Jason Onye got overshadowed, but I think he had a good day. right? But like you said, you
He
talking
was
about
steady doing his job kind of
yes.
guy. Jason wasn't making plays today on the ball, but he was also, clogging up run lanes and things like that. Correct. Sean was flashier in his moments.
Now I definitely want you to dig on this because their play and talking about the speed they're playing with is very similar. How many times did you and I look and say, "Oh, that running back missed the hole," or we thought he had a
At
hole
least 3
backside?
times.
So that it lets me know that they're playing so fast that if you don't hit the hole right, they're converging on the ball.
Yeah,
and that's something we haven't seen.
They're forcing decisions sooner than the running backs would like.
Yes.
The aggressive. Now here's the flip side. If the running backs make the right reads, there are some holes backside.
Yeah.
So there were some mistakes. That's why I say, like, when I talk about how excited we are about the linebackers, it's about the physical playmaking ability. But I'd be willing to bet you that if we watched the film with Al Golden and Max Bulla, you'd hear some, what the heck are you doing? This is a miss. Same with Mike Mickens and the safeties. There were clearly some fit mistakes today on the backside of the zone stuff because there were 4 or 5 plays, I would say, 2 or 3, at least 3 inside zones, and then a couple others where you're like, if this running back hits that correctly, this sucker is going. But the reason they didn't see it is because they had to read it so quickly that they're just like, I got to get vertical here because otherwise this is getting blown up. And to your point, it was that initial penetration that you're seeing from the interior players that is forcing that. That's forcing those quick decisions from the running backs, which is going to result in you a couple times where the quarterbacks didn't. There was a play where CJ Carr should have thrown. I even said it before the snap. I was like, okay, the corner's inside. There's no safety help. You got to throw the go ball here. And CJ Williams came off, ran the go ball, and CJ didn't have a chance to get to it because the pressure up the middle got there so quickly. CJ had to scramble, and he ended up hitting Cam Williams on a stop route coming back. But that should have been a touchdown. Well, why wasn't it a touchdown? And it should have been a touchdown because Cam Williams is going against a walk-on corner. It's a little different, you know what I mean? But it's like that pressure got there, and CJ couldn't step back and get in a rhythm and let the ball go. And those are all things that you look at and say, that's what good defenses do. That's what great defenses do.
Yeah.
I've broken down games where I've broken down Georgia in 21 and Michigan last year. I'm like, man, if those running backs would have made better decisions, there were holes there. But then you'd see it, Sean, and but the hole wasn't there because the running back they sped up the process. Stanford used to do this whenever Stanford would like Oregon versus Stanford back when Chip Kelly was there in early Mark Helfrich era. You'd have these battles where you had these great Stanford D coordinators against Chip Kelly and all that. And you'd see one year Stanford would give up like 50 against Oregon, and the next year they'd hold them like 12, 13. And it was when Stanford had the ability to speed Oregon's decision-making up, that's when they would shut that offense down. They would force Marcus Mariota to make his read quickly and get the ball quickly to either hand off or he's keeping it, which prevents the blocking from really getting going. They would find ways to attack it. And that's what we were seeing today at times from the run game was the running backs were missing holes at times because it was all happening so fast because of that penetration up the middle.
Absolutely.
You're correct. And it wasn't just the linebackers were part of that too, because there were some plays where the linebackers were just flying into the hole and hitting their gaps and just forcing those blow. I mean, there was a lot of really impressive collisions today between offensive linemen and linebackers, both ways. There were some times when, when the offensive line had some really nice pickups of those pressures too and handled those. But I thought that was good to see. Secondary edgewise, when Boubacar Traore is confident in what he's doing, Sean, I mean, he's got it's probably since Julian Okwara that we've seen an edge player that can come off the line the way he does. And I mean that with all due respect to Isaiah Foskey, who was a heck of a player. But I'm just the facts are, I'm not saying Boubacar is going to be as good as Isaiah. I'm not saying that at all because there's a lot he's got to learn. I'm simply saying this one thing. When he lines up and is being told to do one thing, rush off the edge, and he comes off with confidence, I'm just saying I haven't seen anybody show that kind of first step since Julian Okwara back in 18. I just haven't.
Yeah, he had a rep. He had a rep against Jagisaw. That was really impressive late in the practice. It was like, yo, okay. Because we had seen him going up against the second string guys, third string guys, and it's like, oh, he's going up against, yeah. Like you said, the depth, like they just keep coming. Like it's Traore, then it's Burnham, then it's somebody else, and it's like
you just named the two guys to me that I thought flashed the most on the edge.
Yeah.
And on the one series that we talked about, right, where they had pressures. Let me find that series. It was
at the 5th or 6th.
It was on the last drive of the game.
Okay.
So it was basically ones on ones at most spots. And I looked at you and I said, it's the one defense except for two spots. It's Boubacar and Burnham.
Yep.
And on that drive, you saw both of them make plays. And I have down here 51 pressure, 51 pressure, 51 pressure, and they ran 9 plays, I think, on that series. And he wasn't on the field for all of them. He had 3 pressures on that drive. Forced to scramble and forced 2 incompletions. And one of the incompletions was Boubacar hitting. Angeli was here, and Boubacar hit it. You're like, I'd like to see the replay of that one.
Yeah.
And see if he knocked it out.
Yeah.
But man, when he comes off with purpose, and then Burnham, it's like kind of like you see him coming off and blowing up a run play in the backfield. You saw Junior Tuilamaka had that once, and I didn't see a lot from Junior after that, but he had a real nice tackle for loss. I'm not saying Junior didn't do anything after that. I'm just saying I didn't see that.
No, Junior had like one of the best plays right at the beginning of practice where he blew up that Jadarian Price.
Yeah, it was an outside zone play, just blew it up.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything from him afterwards. Again, it's not that he didn't do anything. It's just I can't possibly watch all 22 guys of every play. But Burnham and Traore forced me to notice them today. And that's what you kind of want to see. You definitely want to see that. Yeah. Jordan Botelho didn't play a ton today. None of the like him and Riley and Howard Cross all kind of didn't get at quite as much work. Yeah. And but I thought Junior had some good moments when he was in there as well, or Jordan. I thought Botelho had some good moments in there at times as well. What I liked from Jordan today was when he didn't win on the edge, he didn't keep widening. Yeah. He'd slam right into the tackle to keep the quarterback from going outside and kind of collapsing that pocket. Because there was a couple times where there wasn't one guy that got a pressure. It was just an overall collapse of the pocket. And there wasn't really anywhere for the quarterback to go. That's a coaching point. Hey, if you're not going to win this, crash right into that tackle and drive him right into the pocket. You know what I mean? Because if you keep going wide, then he's going to have room to throw underneath you or tuck underneath you. And if you go too shallow, then he can just step right outside that pocket and get on the run. Slam that sucker, drive it right into the quarterback. And we saw that several times from the pass rushers.
You mentioned it, like the second series of plays, it was the first team defense against the second team offense. And we felt bad for Kenny Minchie because the first team defense, that front four, like the first 3 plays, just, dude, there was no pocket. It was like 1, 2.
These are my play notes for the first 3 plays of that, which is hilarious, Sean. Play 1, completion for -1 yards. That was the swing screen that Drake Bowen just blew up. Play number 2, sack. Play number 3, sack. And the first one was you had a slot fire from Jordan Clark, just untouched. And then the next one was Jalen Sneed just destroying Emil Wagner. Like it looked like on the Jordan fire when the Jordan Clark fire, they just didn't see him and he just came untouched. Nobody got to him. Just, either the quarterback's got to see that and throw hot off of it, or someone's supposed to fan out, pick it up. Somebody's responsible. Nobody was. The next play, it looked like that happened with Jalen Sneed, but if you actually watch the play, Emil Wagner knew he was supposed to block him. He just couldn't get to him. And just explodes off the edge. And you're like, it's going to be a long day for Kenny. If they keep this up, it's going to be a really long day for Kenny Minchie. There's no doubt. But
even in that series, Kenny responded.
He did.
One of the very next plays, 2 pressure in his face. He hit somebody. I think was it Cooper that he hit?
Yes, he hit. No, it was 2 straight throws to that was later. It was to Cam. 2 straight throws to Cam. But up front, Sean, a lot of different guys made plays, which was good to see. Secondary wise, it kind of went how you'd expect it. Christian was very good. Jaden, very active. Jordan Clark, solid in run defense, or real solid in run defense, perimeter passes. You can get to him a little bit down the field. The second safety position opposite Xavier had a hard time, and even Xavier a couple times had a hard time with Jaden Greathouse, which we'll get a little bit, into a little bit more down the road as we talk about the offense. But the secondary, Sean, is the one that I'd want to go back and watch film more of, because there was way too many instances where guys were coming free.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the pass rush, then that was going to be an issue. But, the funny thing is, I'm not even worried about that, because we know how good the secondary can be. But that is something, if we're breaking the defense down, we have to be willing to talk about, is there were too many instances where, like, if the quarterback reads this correctly, that's a touchdown.
Yeah.
Some of them were against, walk-on corners and against Cam Williams, right? Like, but it's that's kind of that was the one drawback today, was if that pressure doesn't hit home, there's some big plays there. But again, Sean, that's going to happen in games too. There's going to be games you're like, the other team, Notre Dame's going to win a game. Well, yeah, but if this would have happened, we could have beat y'all. Like, well, it didn't happen. Why? Because your quarterback didn't have time to find that guy. And that's kind of where you want to be, and that's what we saw today from the defense. Anything else from the D, Sean, you want to get to talk about before we get over to the offense?
No, other than that, just consistent playmakers all over the place. Their ability to punch, counterpunch. I think the way they bowed their neck once the offense got into the red zone multiple times definitely shows you they're going to continue the trend of the improvement in the red zone area. I think they even take it another step. Instead of just stopping teams and holding them to field goals, sixes, turnovers, getting the ball back, because they have that type of talent on the field. So you're extreme. And they all say they've been challenged. All of the players on defense say it's a benefit to be facing this offense this spring, because it's making them better and pushing them. So that's something else that you have to feel. I will say this, just for this team, from what I saw today, this felt like I don't know if Marcus Freeman, it felt like Marcus Freeman said, we're running out this tunnel, act like we're walking in to College Station. That was the intensity they played with on both sides of the ball. Like, this team they didn't come into this practice like sleepwalking. They came in from the first snap, like, okay, you're making a play, we're coming back at you making the play. And so
it was a battle.
And he's mentioned that. I don't know if he's done that before, but he mentioned College Station today. Like, they're earmarking, like,
Yeah, I mean, he's done that a little bit in the past. Like, talk about when we go to Ireland to play, when we go to Columbus. But, it's a little bit different. It's a little bit different this time, because that first game is different than playing in Ireland like last year. So it's something they're going to have to be prepared for. That's going to do it for the defense, folks. We're going to talk about the offense next. Do us a favor. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. And share this podcast. Let's get into the offense, Sean, because it's interesting. I've had some people reach out to me and say, hey, so-and-so said that the defense dominated and all this. And I'm like, the defense won the scrimmage, but I don't think this was a thing where the defense dominated. I really felt like both sides of the ball had good days. And one thing that you and I discussed as we're walking out of the stadium after the practice was, boy, if this offense can compete like this on a consistent basis, as they get certain guys back, you get Riley Leonard back, and you get Bo Collins is able to line up, and Micah Gilbert and Cam Williams get even more experience under their belt, and get Jaden Harrison back, and another guy we forgot to mention earlier in the show, Jordan Faison.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you don't have Jordan Faison today either. I completely forgot to mention Jordan Faison. Not intentional at all.
Yeah.
You get Mitchell Evans back. So there's a lot to be excited about. The biggest thing, Sean, for me is this group competed. And we'll kind of talk first and foremost about the offensive line, because I think that unit was sort of the most symbolic of the day for the offense. Because did the defensive line win the battle against the offensive line? Absolutely. They absolutely did. But my two responses to that are, number one is they should have, because this is a young offensive line that's learning, and you're going against a bunch of 5th and 6th year seniors that are really good. But the other one is they didn't dominate because the offensive line didn't compete. That's the thing. Like, we saw this offensive line battle. And yeah, they got to clean up footwork. They got to be more assignment correct. They got to get better in pass pro. But they will. You know, you have a guy in his 2nd semester of college at left tackle. You have a sophomore at center, a sophomore at right guard. And, you know, you're still a young unit that has started a grand total of 1 game together. If the defensive line didn't win this battle today, I'd be very concerned. But what I liked, Sean, is this as a whole, this unit this offense competed. That's something we saw from Mike Denbrock today. And the O-line was indicative of that. But even just more so, before we get into that, actually, I do want to talk big picture. That's something I was happy to see today. They move with more of an aggressive tempo throughout the practice. They do. I don't want to say specifics, but there's things they do with the receivers that you're like, okay, this is a team that understands there need to be times when we can move, we can put pressure on this defense with matchups and tempo, right? Those are important things. And so I loved the compete level that we saw from this offense today. And as you saw, I'm not shocked at all that the defense counterpunched when they gave up a play. We know this team can do that. We've seen this group do that. You know Al Golden's defense is going to do that. What I'm happy by is that the offense counterpunched today. That's what would have been my concern. And to see them do that without their starting quarterback, without Jaden Thomas, without Jordan Faison, without Mitch Evans, without Bo Collins, without Jaden Harrison, to see them do that today, no Keedron Young, to see them do that without those guys is indicative of Mike Denbrock's not just taking a bunch of talent and fitting an offense around and calling plays. Mike Denbrock's trying to establish an identity. And I've said a million times, identity isn't how much you run versus how much you pass. It's not, do you use 11 personnel this much or 12 personnel this much? It's how you go about your business every single day. And yes, the defense won today's scrimmage. But you're seeing that Mike Denbrock and Joe Rudolph and Dylan McCullough and Mike Brown and, you know, Gino Guidugli, they all have a role in that. But Denbrock's the leader of that group. He gets the blame when it doesn't go right, and he should get the credit when it does. Even though today wasn't a win for the offense, it was a win for the offense, in my opinion, in that we saw a group that's going to compete, a very young group that's going to compete. They're going to battle. And also, Sean, we saw a unit that flat out has some really young dudes. I mean, playmakers. And as they get older and this thing starts to come together, you're going to be excited about what this group can do, Sean, because the talent on offense and the compete level on offense are the two things more than anything that stood out to me today about why I'm more excited today about this offense than I was when I woke up this morning. I'm just going to, from what I saw today, even though the defense won the scrimmage.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because you had the 2 pick sixes. This is because I want to go back to what you said initially. People said the defense dominated. The offense was in position to put up and gain points because they were tallying different things to come to the final score, turnovers, all of that, different things, stops. Offense was in position to put up 40-plus points. They moved the ball to the point, and they had a missed field goal in there as well that we could talk about.
Yeah, they had their moments. Yeah, they moved the ball.
So
now, part of that too, Sean, is like one drive. They had those series where they started the ball at the 50.
Right.
And they had drives where they started going in.
5. Yeah.
Because the way they did it is like they had a base drive. Like the way they set up the scrimmage is they went, first and second groups started their own 35, normal series.
Yeah. Then
the next series was backed up at their own 5. Then the next series was starting at the 40 going in. Right. So there were like, I think that was where one of the touchdowns came was, but that's going to happen in the game, right? I mean, we saw that against Clemson last year. Drive starts at the 41-yard line. So that is part of it too, is that, but even that though, there was the drive on the pick 6 where they started their own 5, but they had driven well in. I mean, they were, if they weren't in field goal range, they were close to field goal range
No,
that
they were
drive.
at the
So
that
they
play
had their moments
was
where
at
they
the
threw the
20.
football,
It was
right,
officially
or moved
started
the
at the
football.
26th
Right,
when he threw the pick six.
right.
They were their opponent's 26. So that's what we're saying. They had moved the ball
Yeah.
60 plus yards up until that point. My point is the environment around this team is more on a consistent basis, an environment that they're going to feel and see in a big game against a big time opponent.
Right.
You're going to lose certain parts of that game. How do you respond? You have to have the ability defensively and offensively to counterpunch. Now, they don't have to play a perfect game offensively to put up 40 points, to put up the high 30s against good defenses. They have that capability. They have the playmakers to make chunk plays and come back from double-digit deficits, things of that nature. Whereas you got down double digits, you felt like, oh, man, that takes the running game away. Now we're in trouble. You don't feel that way now. Right. With this offense. And that's something that's going to be very beneficial as they become more acclimated going into the fall with what Mike Denbrock is trying to establish as an identity, as you talked about. What did he talk about? Get used to making big plays. Right. This is what we're going to do.
Third and 11 means nothing for us. We can go for 30 at any point in time.
Absolutely.
Right. Anytime I get the ball in Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price's hands, they can go for 20 or 30. So I don't mind giving them the ball in some situation on 3rd and 11. Jaden Greathouse can beat anybody at any point in time. So I don't mind, getting him the ball maybe on a quick throw on, like there was one play, it was like 2nd and long, and they threw a little hitch route to Chris Mitchell, and he makes one guy miss and picks up the first down. That happened with KK Smith. So like we talked about this, Sean, we saw an offense much, much more willing to steal yards today. And hey, you know what? If that hitch is there, take the hitch. Boom, hit it. Let those receivers go out there and make plays. If they don't, you catch the ball for 4, 5, 6 yards. If they do, you make one guy miss. Next thing you know, Chris Mitchell's longest gain of the day today was a 20-yard gain. And he caught the ball 5 yards down the field.
Yeah. It's much more stressful. Goes back to what you talked about, the defense on the back end in the film with the linebackers that's going to be watched. This defense is being stressed a lot more.
That's right.
On a play-by-play basis than they were in the previous 2 springs. And that's a beautiful thing.
Right.
They need those reps because that's more favorable to what they're going to feel and see against big-time opponents and big games going into the playoffs. So you talk about this offense, you could talk about, people say they got dominated. Dude, this is a offense that's going to stress defenses.
They lost the scrimmage. They did not get dominated.
No, they turned, they gave away opportunities.
Right.
To put points on the board.
And sometimes the defense made those opportunities.
Absolutely.
But that's what a great defense does. And you've said this multiple times today, Sean. That's and this was the heart of what Marcus Freeman's comment was that I read earlier. It's these guys being able to go against that defense every day is going to make them so much better. They won't play a more complex defense this season than what Al Golden throws at them. They won't play a group of cornerbacks in the regular season better than what they're going to face every single day in practice. That includes when Benjamin Morrison's not out there and it's just Christian Gray and Jaden Mickey. It includes that. I don't know that there's a cornerback tandem better than those two.
I think Florida State will have a pretty decent combination.
Yeah, but they're kids that didn't – I mean, they're young guys stepping in or guys transferring in. It's not the dudes that we've seen do it for them, right?
Right.
And so they're definitely not, I'll tell you this, until they maybe play Michigan in the playoff, they're not going to face a better D tackle tandem than the dudes they played today either. And Riley Mills and Howard Cross they play every day. No. So yes, the defense won the scrimmage. There's no doubt. I mean, but as you mentioned though, it wasn't like the offense didn't have chances to do so. And I'd have been very curious. Like if the first pick six doesn't end in a pick six and it's just a broken up play and you kick a field goal instead of the pick six, if Steve Angeli doesn't throw an interception on that last series inside the 15-yard line,
right?
You know what I mean? Like maybe this is different. And that's the point is it's not a moral victory. You lost, but it's as a coach in a practice, because this isn't a game. This isn't you either win or you lose, and it doesn't matter if you win or, it doesn't matter if you played well, you still lost. This is a different setting than that. This is still a coaching situation. This is still a teaching situation. This is still a building situation, which is different than a game. Because at the end of the day, Sean, if Notre Dame goes out and plays Texas A&M, and they battle and compete, and they played hard, and all the things we've said about both sides, and they still lose, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if they played – they lost.
Yeah.
Today's a little bit different. Today's still part of that building process, and that's why I'm focusing on this, because I am encouraged by the compete level of the offense, because this is what I'll say to you. I was an offensive coach in college, right? Played quarterback, played receiver in college, coached quarterbacks, running backs, receivers in college, right? For over a decade, I was in the college game. And I'll tell you this right now, and having studied, having covered this team for over a decade, I think this is going on 13th or 14th season for me doing this. When you are going out of practice and your focus is on, I got to clean up the technique here, I've got to clean up the reads here. If I'm talking about Steve Angeli, who in his pick six, I'm actually not super upset about the pick six, to be honest with you. I'm upset about the process that led to it, but it's a correctable mistake. I mean, I could use it to bang. Oh, Steve, because everybody knows I don't think Steve's a championship quarterback. Everybody knows I think he's the fourth most talented quarterback in this roster. I could use today's performance to crush the kid. And we're going to be very critical of his play, but this is why he can't. No, he made a bad read. It's correctable. But the compete level was there. That doesn't negate some of the plays he made at other times. Kenny threw a pick six today. There was a miscommunication between him and the tight end. But it was like, but the compete level was there. That was before, I believe, if I'm going to go back and look on this, I believe that was before he led them to a touchdown drive, I believe. No, it was before.
Right?
It was before. Yeah, it was before. So, I mean, you just kind of look at it, and it's just those things, Sean, where yes, they have to clean things up on the offensive line. Yes, the quarterbacks can't have 3 interceptions in any situation. I don't care practice or not. You've got to compete harder for the football. That's the one non-compete thing that I saw today. Outside of that, they competed, and everything that now needs to get fixed is all coaching. It's all correctable. And it's the thing I've always said. If I have to put my foot up your butt to get you to play harder and compete more and have more pride in what you do, we have a problem. If I'm Mike Brown and my only issue is going in look, these guys got to do a better job. When I say competing for the football, it's a technical thing. It's not like they necessarily gave up on the play. They didn't utilize the proper technique to compete for the football. Offensive line, if I'm Joe Rudolph, I'm like, dude, there's a lot I got to clean up today. Man, we got to work on our edge pass sets. We got to work on moving our feet through contact. But you know what Joe Rudolph's not doing in his office today? These kids don't compete. These kids don't battle. They got punched in the mouth today, and they folded. That is not going to be something Joe Rudolph's going to say about his group today. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing, because it's just practice 11 with a young unit that started one game together. And that's the thing that I'm encouraged by. Is Gino Guidugli going to go to his home tonight and tell us, boy, my guys played great today. I couldn't be happier. No, he's not. He's going to be probably a little bit annoyed about the execution of it. But they competed. Steve, the pick six was early. Steve led them on a couple drives after the pick six. It didn't snowball into overall more bad plays, right? I mean, there's a compete level there. He didn't play well at all. But did you at any point in time think, no, Steve doesn't want to be out here. Steve doesn't want to compete today. No, that wasn't it at all.
He came back and made plays.
Exactly. And that's the thing I liked from the offense today, Sean, is there's a lot of things that we're going to have to clean up here if you're an offensive coach at Notre Dame. But the one thing you're happy about is my guys competed today. I can work with that. If you're a coach worth a darn, you can work with that.
Yeah.
Mike Brown can work with what he saw today. Gino Guidugli can work with what he saw today. Joe Rudolph can absolutely work with what he saw today, even though his group probably lost more than any other group on the team, got beat today more than any other group on the team. I'm encouraged by it. Again, I've never been a huge Joe Rudolph apologist. I could use today if I wanted to be like, see, he wasn't. No, I was encouraged by what I saw from his unit today, because you know what? They battled. What was the biggest complaint we had about the offensive line last year when they didn't play well? They didn't compete. They didn't compete today. They got their butts physically kicked by Louisville, and they looked like they didn't want to be out there.
Yeah.
They did not. Same thing against Duke. Same thing against Clemson in certain instances. Today, they just got beat by older players and just guys who were just better than they were today. But they battled. And that's encouraging for me, Sean. They
That's
battle.
all. See, that's if they battle
In practice,
this
that's
offense.
a good place
If
to
they
be.
battle, this offense will put up points.
Yes.
What do we say? The offensive line for over a decade has had the most pressure on it as a unit with this program. If the offensive line didn't play good in the big game, Notre Dame didn't have a chance.
No, and
didn't.
Including 2023.
Absolutely, it didn't have a chance. Now, it's actually ironic that one of the most inexperienced offensive lines that's going to start in Notre Dame history is probably going to have the quarterback play and the weapons to assist them as they get better and become, because they're going to get better. They're too talented not to get better.
That's a great observation, Sean. It's a great.
It really is. It's really ironic.
What you're saying is they don't have to be a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line every week like they have in the past, as long as they battle.
Yeah.
Because if they compete, like here's what we mean by that. And I know exactly what's in your head, Sean, right now, because we've talked about this. I promise you this is kind of what you're thinking about. You're thinking about a situation in the game where it's 3rd and 5 late in the game, and the other team brings a pressure, and the offensive line gets knocked back. They get out late on the edge, and it doesn't look pretty. But as long as they compete, they're going to do what? They're going to get a body on a body, and Riley Leonard's going to find that hole. He's going to run through it and move the chains to pick up the first down. And as an offensive line coach, you're going to say, you got to move your feet better there. You didn't use your hands well enough there. You've got to get, Charles, you got to get to that edge quicker, and you can't give that edge like that. But you're going to look at it and say, but on that next play on 1st and 10, we did a good job because we got good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the point. But what was happening to Sam Hartman last year's dudes weren't even competing. I mean, they were just getting driven like on skates right into the quarterback consistently. Like, they didn't want to be here today. They don't have toughness today. And there was nothing Sam Hartman could do about it. It's like, okay, what am I going to do about it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm 6 feet tall and I weigh 200 pounds and I don't run. You know what I mean? And that's the thing is, like, the compete levels there. And to your point, as long as you get a body on a body, guys, then just let Jadarian and Jeremiah go to work.
Do their work.
Just compete.
Yeah.
And so and Joe Rudolph will clean up that other stuff. So I was actually, specifically speaking about the line, I thought Charles Jagasaw, if you could take that one series out, I thought he had a pretty good day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't take that one series out. And that's the part of being a young player is you can't have that couple plays where you just didn't show the same urgency getting out of your stance. That's really what it was on the one he got beat by Boubacar. He didn't get out of his stance with the same urgency he has to. And Boubacar just exploded past him. And, I mean, just easy sack. It's that consistency level. Tosh has got to be more consistent with his pad level. I thought the inside guys with the first group played better at center and right guard. Pat Coogan just kind of had the same issues he's had in the past, which is he's a tough kid. He battles, but there's just other guys that are just better than he is, and they kind of toss him around at times. I mean,
I think what you talked about early, we can go to Sullivan Apsher. Somebody, you and I, towards the end of practice, we were like, yo, is that 75? Getting that push around the left side? But that first series he came out, like Riley Mills and Howard Cross, they were just dominating that first series when they had to face the ones. But that's that level of competition. Like, just compete. Respond, come back, right? Because as much as you want to talk about how the defense played today, that offensive line allowed the offense the ability to make plays and be in position. We don't know if that last drive, like you said, turns into a touchdown. With the defense dominating, the score could have read offense won on the scoreboard.
Right.
With everyone saying it looked like the defense, and that is, big time programs are able to win games somehow, some way, when they're not playing at their best, and you can't put pressure on one unit to have to be at their best every time you go into a big game. Every time if the offensive line doesn't play well, we don't have a chance to win. No one puts that pressure on that offensive line. No one, because it's impossible. It's just impossible when you're going up against other teams. Right? I think the Michigan-Alabama game in the Rose Bowl is a perfect example. That was just literally play-by-play within series.
Right.
Michigan D-line would win. Alabama's offensive line would win. Michigan D-line would respond. That is big-time college football against top teams. That's how it's going to be.
Now, when you look at the line, 2 takeaways from today. You've got to handle edge pressures better. There were multiple times today a blitzer off the edge, whether it be a linebacker or a rover, came free untouched.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that's going to have to get addressed. Now, what I don't know, because I don't have film of the all-22, is I don't know if it was an empty protection where the quarterback should have thrown hot, or if the linebacker should have or running back should have got out there, or if they should have checked to a slide in that direction. I don't know the specifics of why, but that's something that if you're Mike Denbrock and Joe Rudolph specifically, that hurt you multiple times today. Just pure edge rushers where not a defensive lineman, but somebody, linebacker, somebody else just was completely unblocked. That's going to have to get corrected. That's a specific thing. And we're going to do with the offense what we said earlier, which is we're going to talk big picture first, then get into specifics as we get into the position groups. Because like here's what frustrates me about some people, someone in the chat. I want you guys to get into specifics. Okay, we will. It's our show. We'll talk about that when we want to talk about it. But this big picture stuff matters. Yes, Steve Angeli needs to make better reads. We're going to freaking talk about it when we get there. But that's not as important when you're building a football team as you got to get this identity thing down pat. You've got to get this toughness thing down pat. Those are things that you have to figure out first. So we're going to talk about that first. And if you don't like that, you don't have to be here. You can go somewhere else. I'm just going to say it right now. I'm so tired of that type of this entitled mentality. We're an hour and 15 minutes into a show. We're giving you all this intel, and you're bitching about what we're not going to get to you, which we are going to freaking give to you if you'll calm down for 5 seconds. So here's the other thing. Andrew Gilmore does not understand the point you made earlier, Sean. I know you're shocked by that.
No, he just contrarian.
Andrew,
to it at this point.
You're making Sean's point. The point Sean made was when the offensive line didn't play well, they didn't win. So you disagreeing and saying they let them down in 21 and 22 in certain games is making the point. When the offensive line didn't play well in the past, Notre Dame lost. That's the point. The point that Sean's making now is we're seeing a team that has the potential because of the playmakers at quarterback, receiver, running back to where the offensive line doesn't necessarily always have to be an elite unit for this team to win. That's the point. So it's funny watching someone disagree with you and then literally make the point you're making about the group. That's the point. The offensive line didn't always play well. The problem was when they didn't play well, the team couldn't win. Why did the offense struggle so much in 2021? Because the offensive line didn't play very well a lot of the times. And when they didn't, the offense struggled. That's the point. Because they didn't have enough overall talent or a scheme in place or an identity in place to where they could still go out and battle enough up front and then have the skill talent at outside and at quarterback to then go still win games. It was completely dictated by how the offensive line played. And that's the point that Sean is making.
I don't want to say it was fraudulent, but I think a perfect example to what we're talking about is the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line from last season.
Talking about Washington?
I still
don't understand that one.
Their quarterback play and their talent
and their scheme
on the outside and scheme made them look phenomenal. You talk about, though, they didn't give up sacks. They have a quarterback that's like pre-snap, post-snap, knows where to go, and there's no doubt in big moments where they're going.
Yeah,
like they're going to Odunze on a big third down, on a big 4th and 1. It's like
and they know how to scheme those guys over.
And they know how to scheme, and the run game plays off of them, spreading you out like everything. And
when they played a defense in the championship game that could somewhat slow those receivers down,
It
They
became
couldn't.
tougher.
The offensive
They
line
couldn't
couldn't put the team on the shoulders.
No, and they
Couldn't do
couldn't
it.
keep Michael Penix
Couldn't do
from
it.
feeling pressure on a consistent basis.
Couldn't do it.
So,
But
and
they
in
also
that
didn't have a
game,
defense that could make stops either, and that's the thing that's the whole point is you can't have one side of the ball or one position group be so dependent upon if they don't play well, you can't win. That you can't have that. And
No.
that's the point of what we're discussing. I'm going to move on to the receivers and the skill players.
No. But just to like put a nice little bow on that, with all of that being said, Michael Penix still had 2 to 3 opportunities that could have changed that game.
That's right. You got to make those plays.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're talking about. If the offensive line, Notre Dame's offense is still, the quarterbacks will still have opportunities to put points on the board. And that is something that we haven't felt with an offense in a while.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the skill players, Sean, that played well today. First of all, I'm going to say this right now. I hope Salty Virginia Peanuts is in the chat right now. I don't think that he is because I haven't seen a post today. So we did our best to kind of track statistics during the game. So, it was me, Sean Stiers, and Sean Davis. And what I had Jaden Greathouse down today, Sean, is I had him down for 4 catches for 82 yards. He should have had at least 100 more yards if the quarterbacks would have noticed him. He was really good today, Sean. And it started early. So we're tracking the first series, first team offense, right? And they ran an outside zone on play 1, ran a couple quick game on play 2 and 3. And then they get into a situation where it's 1st and 15 and they run the slot fade concept to and Angeli hits Cooper Flanagan on a quick option cut as number 3 guy. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is why you got to be on the message board, because I did a 35-minute breakdown of the slot fade concept, which is going to be the bread and butter for Notre Dame. I'm not giving anything away because anyone that's watched Mike Denbrock's offense the last 5 years knows that's going to be their number 1 play. And what do I have written down in my notes? 19 wide open on the fade. He just torched a linebacker on the fade, wide fade throw. Then I have another little quick completion to Chris Mitchell. And then 3rd down, they threw an outside go route to Micah Gilbert that was incomplete. And I have 19 open up the seam. And it was just all day. I mean, they could not cover Jaden Greathouse today. And this is a secondary that was ranked in the top 5 in college football last year in pass defense. This is a secondary that shut down Marvin Harrison Jr., right? This is a secondary that shut down USC's pass game last year, right? I mean, this is a really good secondary. And Jaden Greathouse was just dynamic today. And he was doing it in different ways. He's getting his ability today to get immediate separation as a route runner was really impressive. You see him coming off the line and the way he attacks the leverage of the defender, it's like because like you want to have the 3-way go option as a receiver. And what I mean by that is if I'm attacking a receiver, hey, look, we're talking specifics. If I'm attacking you as a defensive back, I need to, as best I can, keep the ability to go 3 ways, which is left, right, or vertical. And if you're playing outside of me and all I do is release easily inside of you, I can go vertical or inside, but I can no longer threaten you in the 3rd way, which is outside, to the right. So it's inside, outside, go. And so what you want to do is attack in a way to where I can still maintain I have now threatened you where you don't want me to threaten you. So if I'm playing inside coverage against a guy, then I'm doing what? I'm protecting my inside. I want you to go outside where I have safety help or I have the sideline to help, or I have a flat defender coming out to protect or something like that, right? Jaden did such a good job today of attacking using his stem to attack the leverage of the defenders where he could keep the 3-way go option open. And then that allowed him to, when he did make his cut, and his suddenness out of breaks was exceptional today. And it has been all spring, Sean. I mean, he's the first guy I talk about, I think, in every practice report I put up. Like, Jaden Greathouse is that guy. He's that guy. He's that guy. And we saw it today. Whether it was, I mean, his first catch of the day, I believe, was on an option throw. And actually, let me pull this up here real quick. So I actually have these scanned down by player target. His first catch today was a little quick option route, just a little quick over the middle, caught the ball 5-6 yards down the field, makes the guy miss, gets vertical for 30 yards, right? 30-yard gain for the great job quarterback, 30-yard gain, but it was really Jaden Greathouse just finding that opening, making a play, getting free, and getting vertical for a big play. Very next play, they come back and run their cross out concept. Again, I'm not giving away secrets. Anyone that watches Mike Denbrock's offense knows what this is. And Angeli makes the good read because it's basically what happens is you're going to have a pass concept to the left and a 2x2 concept to the right. But the 2x2 concept to the right is actually not together. The cross is actually going to work over to the other side where he's going to be part of the read over here. The outcut is a one-on-one read. If they line up like this, I'm banging the outcut. Steve made a good read on it, threw it immediately to Jaden. Jaden catches it. It was good timing by Steve. Again, it was one of his better reads of the day. Got the ball out quick. It's a one-on-run read. There's no post-snap read. It's other than if they show something different post-snap, you go away from it. But as long as they stay with what you did, corner pedals, Jaden snaps that outcut, but he snapped the outcut so quick. He pushed the vertical so hard that the corner kept sinking, and he just snapped the outcut off outside. Steve threw it on time. He allowed Jaden to catch it, square up, get vertical for an 18-yard gain, right? I mean, you just saw that constantly. There was another play where he just outran a safety to the other side of the field, and that was the one where he threw his hand up like, dude, I'm open, and he probably should have had 3 touchdowns. He didn't have any. He should have had 3 touchdowns today. And we saw them moving him all over. He was sharp today, Sean. Athletic, fast, but stronger, but just such a great command of the offense. Like, he has picked up Mike Denbrock's offense very quickly. Like, he does not look like a true sophomore for Notre Dame right now at all from what we saw today, at all.
Yeah, I think Mike Denbrock early identified like, oh, he's going to be one of those guys. He's one of the guys going to build this. I think he's identified Greathouse. I think he's identified Jeremiah Love. I think it's some guys in the offense that he's already identified like, okay, I think Cam Williams has been, you can just tell. And I think you can tell with the comfort level that the quarterbacks have with certain guys as well, like looking for them, on their reads. Jaden Greathouse, man, along with Chris Mitchell, dude. And like you said, Faison and Collins aren't even around.
Neither Jaden Thomas wasn't there today. Right. Exactly. Jaden Harrison wasn't there today.
Exactly. He was out. And Jaden Harrison was having a fantastic spring in the slot. So, I mean, you come out 4 wide and you had Greathouse and Jaden Harrison in the slot. Man, if I'm a safety, I'm probably back at 20 yards. Like, let me back up a little bit because I don't know what's about to happen. It is really good to see this young man, first of all, be healthy.
Yeah.
And he looks a lot leaner, a lot stronger,
more cut,
faster. Absolutely.
He had a little bit of baby fat on him last year.
Yeah.
Now he looks like a man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. He looked really good today. And the other thing I noticed from him today too, Sean, is does a lot of talking. And I'm not talking about trash talking. I'm talking about pre-snap communicating to other receivers. There was one play where the quarterback made a check. Jaden heard it. He immediately starts getting lined up. He immediately looks over and is telling the other receivers, hey, here's what we're doing, right? He's getting that communication. So you're seeing more of that as well from him today too, John. And there was one particular play where he noticed, hey, I need to be lined up on the ball, or somebody needs to be lined up, and he's getting people moved around. So you're seeing that from him today as well, Sean. That's part of that command of the offense that we're talking about. It's not just, hey, I know how to run routes, but like you've got to know all of it. I've got to know what I'm running a route against. I've always said this to my receivers. They would when I first got into coaching to see, like, hey, I play this position. Why are you having me learn that? I said, because if you don't know what the other guys are doing, you can't really truly know how you're supposed to do your job.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, that's kind of what I liked what I saw from him today. And he's going to be a good one. And here's the thing. I could be overreacting to today's practice, Sean, if we hadn't seen this from him all spring. I mean, he's the first guy in every drill. He's just a kid that's going out there and making a ton of plays. And he stood out to me today. He was very good today. You know who else I thought he only had 1 catch for 10 yards, but I thought KK Smith looked really good today.
Yeah.
He should have had at least 2 more catches. And the thing I like too is he catches the ball and he's real quick with the ball in his hands. He is a difference maker. But he had a post route. Let me see who was the. Let me find the particular. It was who was the quarterback on that play?
Yeah, was it Angeli that
Kenny?
Oh, it was Kenny.
It was
okay.
Kenny.
Yeah.
It was on a play where Kenny scrambled
for like 11.
Kenny's got to see that. That was one where he scrambled late. And it was actually a really good play by Kenny to scramble, but he's got to see that right now.
Yeah.
But he had smoked a corner for what would have been a touchdown. And he's got to hit the top of his drop, know he's going to get hit, and let that sucker go. And if he does, that's a touchdown for KK Smith. I thought KK looked really good today. And he played inside and outside today.
Yeah.
I thought he had a really good day today. I thought that Cam Williams showed today the two sides of Cam Williams. There's the side that's still young, that still has to learn. One of the big mistakes he made today is going up against a walk-on corner. He has the guy smoked, ball's on time, but he doesn't, you have the end zone there. He doesn't make a play for the ball.
He tried the one-handed.
Yeah, and
it
didn't need to be there. And there's things but he also showed he can be a playmaker. He had 5 catches for 62 yards, according to our stats today. And he showed he made plays on stop routes, hitch routes, go routes. I mean, Cam, he smoked a guy on a Chance Tucker, a scholarship guy, on a post route for a touchdown. And that's the thing where you're like, if you're Mike Brown, you're like, look, there's a lot I got to clean up with Cam. But this stuff that he does well is really good. This is practice 11 for Cam Williams in a Notre Dame uniform. He's going to figure it out. I thought Micah Gilbert had a rough day today. He's had a very good spring. He didn't play that great today.
Yeah.
Right. So but sometimes I feel like days like today are good for Micah Gilbert because he was starting at X today. He was the starting boundary receiver today. I thought he struggled. There was a play where he was going against Christian Gray, and it was good coverage, not great coverage, but good coverage. The quarterback puts the ball in a place where both guys have a shot at it. Christian outplayed him for the ball. Micah, you got to do a better job out. He's never played against anybody as good as Christian Gray in his life.
Yeah.
That's part of the learning process. And sometimes days like today, because Micah Gilbert has had a great spring so far, just a great spring so far. Sometimes you need days like today, Sean, where you don't play that well to say, okay, I'm still a work in progress. Because sometimes success can come at you so quickly that you're like, this is easy. You know what I mean? Like, I thought college would be harder. And then a day like today happens, you're like, yep, had a little bit of humble pie today for lunch. Yep. And I got to get back in the lab and keep working to keep getting better. So I think days like today are going to be great for both Cam Williams and Micah Gilbert. But here's the thing that they both showed today, Sean. I'll be honest with you about it. These kids physically are ready to play right now. Meaning not physically, not just strong enough, but also physically, like their athleticism, their length, and their speed they're college ready now. And they both showed that they have playmaking ability. Cam showed it today. Micah has shown it at other periods in the spring. And boy, I tell you what, man, it's still a lot to learn, but so far, those look like hits from a recruiting standpoint for Notre Dame. So does KK Smith, by the way.
Yeah.
He had 2 offers from Power 5 schools, Texas Tech and Notre Dame. So props to Chad Bowden for seeing that one and going and getting that kid. Because that kid, if he sticks around, and I say this for all the kids, if KK sticks around, he's going to be a player at Notre Dame.
Yep.
That kid can play. I could see him being what Chris Mitchell is this year. I could see Notre Dame easily going into next year saying, we don't need to go to the portal for another X or Z receiver. We got KK.
KK.
I mean,
it's nice to see an offensive staff acknowledge the talent. So that you're saying they're not waiting for Micah and Cam to learn the entire route tree before they get on the field?
Exactly.
This is what you do best.
We'll see in the fall, right? They're still going to have to do in the fall. That's going to be obviously a part of it. But for now, I mean, like you said, you saw Micah Gilbert out there today with the ones. Now, would he have been with the ones if Jaden Thomas was healthy? Probably not. But he was in there with the ones over Deion Colsey. So clearly they're seeing something. So, but today he was not a great day for Micah Gilbert. And sometimes I think that can be a good thing because success was coming to that young man real fast this spring, Sean. And it was earned, and now he's going to have to get back at it at receiver, at that position. So, other things at receiver. I mean, we talked about KK. I think we've kind of handled all that. You ready to do a deep dive into the quarterback room?
Yeah, let's do it.
One of the plays of the day was Jeremiah Love running over Adon Schuler, by the way. Adon had come downhill, and Adon was thinking Jeremiah was going to make some kind of move on him. And Jeremiah said, my move is to run right through you. So I thought Aeneas Williams ran well today. There was a lot of room to run, but he put his foot in the ground and ran hard. And one of the best reads of the day, talking about quarterbacks, was a run to him. It was a 3rd and 5, and they were bringing outside pressure, and Kenny completely checked out of whatever call they had, brought guys in, and they just ran inside zone right inside. They were bringing a double outside blitz, and Kenny called inside zone, and they ran right inside of it and got right near the first down marker. So that was a really nice play as well. I thought Jadarian ran well today. He didn't get a ton of touch. He ran well today. He was actually the back that had the most efficient runs. He just didn't have any highlight reel runs today, but he was the most efficient runner today. Jadarian was. But I thought Aeneas ran hard. So we did see the tight ends, the running backs today play well.
And
tight ends.
They put Jeremiah Love out in space in 21.
Yes, in the slot. Yep.
For an entire series.
Yep.
Very effective. Yeah.
Tight ends caught 5 balls today. So for those worried about, how often they'll throw to the tight ends, they caught 5 balls today. Most of it kind of quick game stuff. There was a couple opportunities where they could have gotten more, but we'll get into a little bit of that. So let's talk about the quarterbacks today, Sean. So we kept stats from today's practice, and here's what I have. I have Steve Angeli going 11 of 18 for 149 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I have CJ Carr going 7 of 13 for 84 yards, 1 touchdown, and then he had also a rushing touchdown. I had Kenny Minchie at 4 of 8 for 33 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a rushing touchdown. So let's dive in. You got the numbers. Let's dive into the specific play because I think the numbers can be a bit misleading on how well some of the guys played compared to another guy. But the big thing about the quarterbacks today, though, is the turnovers. Talk about learning lessons, Sean. Big lessons today from the Notre Dame quarterbacks when it comes to turnovers. But it also shows that every interception, the first 2 interceptions were as much about veteran DBs baiting young quarterbacks into mistakes. And that's going to be something where, as I said before, I can live with those mistakes to a degree now because you're going to learn that lesson about, okay, I can't just make a pre-snap decision on a middle of the field boundary throw, throw to my boundary receiver because that gives that corner a lot more room to work. And so that's obviously a big thing is they're going to have to clean that up. But I do think over what we did see today is with the young quarterbacks, we'll talk kind of broadly and then we'll dive into some specifics about what we saw from them. But in my opinion, CJ Carr was clearly the best quarterback that they had.
Yeah, he definitely played. He played better. You talk about the context. The Angeli one post snap, you have to see that. You have to recognize that. I think where you are in the field, because they have been playing similar coverage in the middle of the field. And once you get into the red zone, you have to know space is starting to be more compact. Now, these defensive backs can take more of a chance, come up and not give as much cushion or to, All
right, so let's just dive into that then. Let's just dive into, we'll talk about Steve first and and those type of things. So the play Sean's talking about, basically they were running an RPO. They're running it was an inside zone. It looked like, I think it was inside zone run. Yeah. And Steve read RPO and he pulled it and threw it. Now, I actually don't have a big problem with him making that decision. He had another RPO decision later where that was a mistake. He was running an inside zone. He pulled it to get outside to throw an under route, and he got tackled for a -4-yard gain by the defensive end. Boubacar, it was a great play by Boubacar. But if the defensive end tackles the quarterback on a read zone play, you made the wrong read as a quarterback. That's just that just can't happen otherwise. But what happened was Jaden Mickey was playing off coverage pre-snap, and it was a middle of the field throw. Now, boundary, if I'm on the hash and I have that same read, at best, all Jaden Mickey could have done on that play is break it up at best. And it might have even actually been you catch it and it's a tackle for a 4-yard gain.
Right.
Most likely it's kind of broken up. But because you're middle of the field, and this is that field awareness you talk about, Sean, the situational awareness, you have to know that's a further throw. Meaning I've got to make sure that I properly read this. So what happens is the guy's off, he pulls it, and I'm throwing the hitch route. Because it was a further throw, that allowed Jaden Mickey to bait him. He baited him into the pull with his pre-snap alignment, and the mistake Steve made is Steve didn't read it post-snap. And that was Steve's problem all day. His post-snap reads far too often, not always, far too often, were not good. And on this particular play, Jaden baits him into the pull, but he's got to see Jaden is squatting on that route. And yes, you could bang it if you throw it to the outfield side shoulder, like the sideline shoulder on a boundary throw. You could probably still hit that or prevent it from being picked. But when you're throwing that from the middle of the field over, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And Jaden baited him. And the other problem, too, is I don't know that that's a pick for Kenny or CJ. And this is what I was saying to you up in the booth. This is where Steve's throwing motion hurts him on that type of throw because he has a much longer, motion where Kenny is boom, CJ is boom, Riley is I'm out. Steve is more that old school drop it and throw it. That extra split second of my release is longer than yours is the difference between a pass breakup and a pick six. So 3 mistakes. Number one is he's just got a longer throwing motion, which doesn't hurt him if he knows that. You got to know who you are. Hey, look, I can't get that ball out as quickly as CJ and this guy can, right? And so there's several mistakes on that play.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I love. He's going to get in the film room and Gino's going to walk him through.
Yeah.
Okay, your pre-snap read was okay, but here's why you threw the pick six here. And Steve will learn from it. But you saw some of the limitations with him today when the Bullets were a little bit more live and a little bit more talented than the kids he was going against.
You know what? I'm going to pull out something. This is something both of us, sin is not always about commission. Sometimes it's about omission, right? And I'm going to throw out the interception because I thought coming from the 5, I saw a lot of good stuff from Steve on that particular drive that just happened to end with that one bad decision. And it's like, oh, man, you really had something going there. We saw multiple plays where it was omission that really stood out.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that was a good throw to that, but you had that.
Right.
Like, that was a good decision, but you had that. Yeah.
That's a very good point, Sean. And this is something that when you talk about and you go through and you look at Steve's play today, it started right away. First play of the game, miss snag, right? They're running a snag concept. He doesn't see the receiver working in wide open over the middle. The issue that Steve had today is far too, and this has been an issue really for him last year, and it's an issue for him now. And this is what people need to understand when you're playing against second teamers and mop up minutes and you're playing against a completely depleted Oregon State team. They're not going to force you to go away from your number one read very often because they can't cover your number one read. Well, this Notre Dame secondary can. And so he has to go through his progressions better. At times he did, but honestly, the success he had today, Sean, most of it was with his number one read. It was, I'm locked in on Jaden. When he hit Jaden Greathouse, it's because Jaden Greathouse was the number one read, right? The option route is the number one read. The out cut, he was the number one read. He threw it, and that's when Steve had success. He was, I believe he threw the ball. Let me look it up here. The one I have marked down by quarterback, I believe he threw the ball to Chris Mitchell. Nope, that was let me see here. Where was 10? Let me see here. Yeah, Steve was the quarterback. He threw the hitch route. They ran a slot fade. The corner sank, and he saw it, and immediately he got his eyes on the one read, corner sank, and he snapped it off far field throw because it's a post snap. It's like the problem with the RPO is a lot of times with young quarterbacks, when the RPO they view as a pre-snap read, but you also have to post snap read it so you don't get baited for a pick six. Well, on a slot fade, there's your pre-snap is only identifying who your read key is. That's all you're doing. So the read key is who you identify, but your read is actually post-snap. So when you're running slot fade, and this is why you need to watch the breakdown, you're reading that corner. Well, on that play, the corner bailed, and Steve immediately hit that 1-2, got the ball out quickly to Chris Mitchell. Why does that matter? Because what that allowed Chris Mitchell to do is catch the ball 5 yards down the field, square up, and then make a defender miss and pick up 20. So that little 5-yard throw turns into a 20-yard throw because you got the ball out quickly. And another great throw that Steve made today was on another snag concept where he hit Jaden Greathouse on a corner route. But he got his eyes on the corner. The corner came up and sank, and he hit Jaden on it. But then he had another read later where the corner sank back, but Steve was locked in on Jaden Greathouse, and he threw into double coverage. So when he did well today, it's when and that was the biggest difference between him and CJ Carr today. the junior CJ made several big throws today where it was very clear that was his third read. The in cut he hit Chris Mitchell on, it was his third read. It was him moving, finding that backside dig cut and hitting it.
Same
That's
thing
the
to
difference.
the tight end down
Yes.
inside the 10.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And whereas with Steve, his really good throws, and he made the wide fade stop route, the wide stop route to Eli Raridan. That was a really good throw, but that was his initial read. Right. That's where he needs to go. And so that's where Steve really struggled with today, was really when he had to process, because there were too many times, as you were talking, Sean, like there were too many times. Let me pull up the breakdowns by quarterback. That's the one by receiver. So let me get the Steve section on this. Miss snag, 19 wide open on the wide fade, 19 open on the seam, pick six, bad RPO read on, bad read hitch open on an incomplete pass to Jaden Greathouse. There were too many snaps like that where you got to know that that's not there, because you've got to read it. And the issue is Steve was locking in, and then there were times he was just kind of taking the slide on the snag. The slide was there. He threw it 2-yard gain, right? But you need to know if this guy's flying out on the slide, even if the slide has a step on him, you've got to know that snag is coming right open behind it. You got to know that and hit that. You've got to know, based on this coverage, I've got to look for this route over here. But he would just kind of lock in on that one route and throw it. And when that guy was open, looked good. When he wasn't, it wasn't good. And that's where Steve's got to get better. And that's I would say probably if you're a Steve Angeli fan, that's got to be the most disappointing part of today's day, is that the freshman did a better job going through progressions than you did. And that's something he's going to have to get.
That really should be your strength.
Right.
As the least physically gifted guy.
Right.
Like anticipation, post-snap, pre-snap, those reads, being in the offense, playing more snaps. That should be the strength. Like, that should be something we shouldn't have to worry about you doing. That mistake right there, we shouldn't have to worry about that. The physical stuff, the ball not being able to get to a certain place before the defender is able to knock it down and have a PBU, okay. That's fine. We understand that. Or you not being able to throw the ball long enough, it gets broken up. Limitations. Right. We have the efficiency, though. But like the numbers you said, he once again, he was literally, this is, I guess I'm trying to make it sound better for the kid. He literally was 2 bad decisions away from having a really good day. He really was, because both of the bad.
Well, I would still be. Me, I'd still be
about the omissions and the missed opportunities. Right. Because
you know what it is, Sean. He's 2 bad reads away from no one believing anything we said about the missed opportunities. The 2 interceptions are going to wake people up to like, wow, that's numbers aren't numbers look good. 11 of 18 for 140 some yards, but the 2 picks were big. But it's why I say is numbers can absolutely lie to you if you're not using them in the proper context, because anyone that's looking at the numbers in the proper context is going to say, yeah, but what should they have been? Yeah, you went 11 of 18 for however many yards, but you should have been 14 of 18 for 230 yards
and 2 touchdowns.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so those are and Kenny had some of that a little bit today too. But in Kenny's defense, here's the big difference. Kenny was getting pressured every time he dropped back to throw the football. Man, he didn't have time to go to his second read. He really didn't. And that's the thing that I thought hurt him a little bit today was that right there. I mean, they ran a tunnel screen. Go ahead.
No, because you're about to lead into it. Go right ahead.
Yeah, like they had a tunnel screen today that Steve was 4 of 8, or Kenny was 4 of 8 for 33 yards. But like one of his incompletions was they threw a tunnel screen that Jordan Clark just blew up to Jaden Greathouse. Here's another one, like it's incomplete pass on verticals, 40 pressure. Here we go. Here's another one. 14 go route, incomplete, 14 didn't compete for the ball. It's scramble plus 19, scramble plus 9 because of pressures. 3 smoked 59, 1 slot fire on a sack. I mean, it just was kind of all day. You were seeing Kenny just didn't have a lot of time to get the ball out. The couple times he did get time, I thought he handled himself pretty well. You talked about his first drive of the game, first play, -1, second play, sack, third play, sack. They have to start the drive over again, go back to 1st and 10 because they were only running 6 plays at a time at that point. They go inside zone, and then he comes out, hits Cam Williams on a stop route. It was a great read. Just saw it. Cam got to the top, and I think that was his second read on that, his second progression, I believe, on that play. Hits Cam outside on the stop route, and on the very next play, they're running the snag concept, and he does what I didn't like that Steve did. Sees the tight end running, but he waited, let Cam get open on that snag, and he banged it right behind him, and Cam picks up 7 compared to the 2 that you got earlier when you threw to the tight end. That's the whole point, right? That's a 5-yard difference. Same concept, same read, 5-yard difference. And so those are things to me, Sean, that you saw from Kenny where he did show some of that. But honestly, part of Kenny's day is an incomplete because we didn't get a chance to see him get to go through his progressions the way CJ and Steve did, because it just so happened that when he was in the game, the offensive line had some issues. And this is true when he was with the first team offensive line. Yeah. Because he had a series with the first team offensive line as well. And they didn't do a great job of protecting him in those matchups. But I'll say this, the one series where he was with the ones, he led them on a touchdown. Yeah. So they had an incomplete pass on the first play. He scrambled for 9 yards on the next play. They converted a 3rd and 1. He hit the 3-yard completion to Cooper Flanagan. They had the go throw that got broken up. Then he hit a slot fade hitch route to KK Smith for 10. They ran an inside zone for 11. That's when Jeremiah Love ran over Adon Schuler. And then the next play, they're running a Y under,
jet sweep.
Yeah.
Jet sweep zone.
Right. Ran jet sweep away. It was actually a play action pass. You fake jet sweep one way, and then you run the little Y under screen the other way. They flew out with the Y under. Kenny held it. You knew he was letting himself clear. And as soon as he cleared, he planted his foot, got vertical, ran in for a touchdown. And he had to split 2 defenders as well to get there because they had 2 guys collapsing on him. So like the one series, he gets somewhat level of protection. He leads the offense down for a touchdown. And so that was good to see. But I believe that was his only drive with it. Now, on the pick 6, I don't know specifically what happened as far as the mistake was, but essentially he had Cooper Flanagan running a route against the safety, and Cooper Flanagan ran vertical. Kenny clearly thought he was running a breakoff route. He threw the breakoff route as Cooper kept running. Xavier Watts just kept coming down and picked it off. Now, I don't know if one of 2 things was happening on this one. Number one, either Cooper ran the wrong route and Kenny threw it where Cooper was supposed to go, and it was a mistake. That's option 1. Option 2 is it was an option route, and Cooper saw the safety coming down, and he ran vertical like he should have if it was an option route, and Kenny misread it and threw the pick. Yeah. Either way, somebody made a mistake. I don't know who it was. I can't tell you. I don't want to say it was Kenny because I don't know. I don't want to say it was Cooper because I don't know. I'd have to know the play call. But what I know is there was clearly a miscommunication where the quarterback thought the receiver was running one, or the tight end was running one thing. It's also a great play by Xavier Watts.
Yeah, it was. I think
made him into that throw and then closed down on it, pick it off.
I think there's a positive you can pull from that, which is, in my opinion, is totally different than the Steve Angeli interception. Either one, because I think the second one was worse than the first one.
Oh,
I'm sure we're gonna get to the second one.
The first one, really, honestly, was a really good job by Jaden Mickey, baiting him into that throw and then breaking on it. I mean, yes, Steve has to make a better read and not get, but part of that is if Jaden doesn't bait him into that with what he did pre and post snap, it's a handoff and they run for 4 yards. So to your point, the second one, Sean, I'll let you get into it. That was just flat out. I still don't know.
We get to that, but the one with Kenny and Cook, that at least I feel like, okay, we both saw, but we had different interpretations of what X was doing.
Right.
Like we both saw it coming pre-snap. You thought you should keep the vertical. I thought you were going to break it down. That's something we'll go back. We'll talk about that in film, rep it up, and we'll be fine, right? Because we both saw the same thing. It's not, we both saw the same thing. We just interpreted it different, and we were off. If they were on, that's a touchdown. Like Cooper probably.
If Kenny knew, as long as Kenny knew that it was an option.
Yeah.
Correct.
It has the possibility of being a touchdown.
Because he goes like this, Xavier jumps it, and then he just
throws it
Right
over
over
the
the
top of him. Absolutely. So that is a positive we can pull from that. But like you said, without knowing what the call was, check and everything, but that's something you can clean up. Now we go to the second interception. They're literally at what, the 13-yard line. Another good drive by Stephen Jelly has the offense going in, and then they run like it was a bootleg to the right. And I saw Greathouse. It was actually really good coverage on Greathouse because he was coming up and then he was running an out route. And
on the
that's it.
last pick.
Yeah, on the last
Yeah,
pick.
they high load Greathouse.
high
They were running
load.
some kind of quick cross
Yeah.
concept, and they played great. I mean, they played
played
Greathouse
great.
hard.
They played great. And I think there was somebody coming backside that maybe he could have waited on, but that's just a play like, yo, you tip your cap to defense, throw that out the back of the end zone.
Right, but
Because you're in the
here's the
red
thing though,
zone.
Sean. Jalen Seed wasn't even covering Jaden Greathouse.
No, he was underneath.
That's the thing I still don't understand. Is like he threw that ball like he had no idea Jalen Seed was there. Like it literally hit him right in the chest. Like it wasn't even like he got baited. Jaden Greathouse was standing right in between him and the receiver, and he just threw it right on the line, right into his chest. I still don't know what he was thinking. Like I still don't know that if he even saw Jalen Sneed. I don't. And that was the thing is like you saw some of the limitations with Steve today.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. You saw some of the limitations. You saw he has a slower release. You know, he's never been forced to go through reads the way he was today. Mm-hmm. He wasn't forced to do that in the bowl game. Notre Dame completely outclassed Oregon State in the bowl game. And today he had to go through different progressions, and he just didn't throw the ball very well. Kenny, to me, is still a little bit of a work in progress in that regard, but it was really hard to evaluate Kenny because of just the circumstances. That brings us to CJ Carr. CJ had his mistakes as well. We'll get those. I mean, he made a really good read on a post-snap switch with the X and the tight end. He had Deion Colsey coming open over the middle, Sean, and he just missed him.
Just missed him, yeah.
Just sailed it. It's a ball he's got to hit. Got to hit that throw. And there was a couple other times where, you know, you had a throwaway in there. But the thing I loved about CJ, Sean, is when I'm going through his progressions today, like here's one of his incompletions. Snagged, well covered, scramble, throwaway. You know, looking at another one, little 4-yard completion on a slant route to Jeremiah Love. I liked that. Threw a go ball to Deion Colsey that was well covered. Kind of, it looked like a bit of a throwaway to me, to be honest with you. Throws another go ball, a fade ball in the end zone to Deion Colsey that I actually thought was a pretty good ball, but Deion just didn't really battle for it. Just didn't really go up and compete for the ball, which was just disappointing to see because that was a great opportunity for Deion against a 5'11" corner to go up, outplay the guy for the ball. And I don't know if he didn't see it because like all three of the plays where the guys didn't compete for the ball were in the same spot in the end zone. And I'm like, was the sun in their eyes or something? Like I legitimately, because it all happened at that same exact spot, right?
Yeah.
Right corner end zone, looking back towards the scoreboard. I really wonder if they just didn't see the ball because it was with two different quarterbacks, three different receivers, and it was Cam Williams on one, Deion Colsey on another, Micah Gilbert on another. I really wonder if they just didn't see the ball.
Yeah,
but that was another one, and then he had the one that hit Cam Williams in the hands that he tried to be too cute with it and didn't catch it. That should have been Cam should have had 2 touchdowns today.
Yeah, easily.
That was on him, and then he you know, so you had some of those kind of throws. I had one that so here's my one on the Deion Colsey. It says bad ball, good read. You know, I mean that's the thing, you know, and
but you get that with a youngster, right?
Right.
Just the inconsistency. I think he missed another one high to the right.
That was the one to Deion that I thought was a throwaway.
Yeah,
because they had Deion kind of bracketed, and I just think he read pre-snap. I'm going here, and then the defense rolled. And he saw the roll and just because like what can happen is if you pick I'm throwing the backside go ball and then they roll to something different, you're done. They kudos to them. They won that chess match. And I thought he kind of just threw that. Maybe Deion can go make a hero play, but I look more like a throwaway to me because they adjusted their coverage to him is what it looked like to me.
I love with him and also Kenny. I think something that stood out really for the entire room. I think the most impressive play for me, CJ, that post route to Cam Williams, that's a layup. Talk about those two talented kids. That's a layup.
Yes.
I mean, dude, you give backside, you give him that.
But he read it. That's the thing for me.
That's the
he
thing.
had to read it.
So that's impressive. For me, the pass he made late, I think it was like the last series where he led them to a touchdown. When he reads late, it might have been his third read. The tight end coming across, and he has to scramble and move up into the pocket, and he's going throwing it against his body because he's moving to the right coming up.
You talking about the one near the goal?
Coming across, yeah.
Dude, that was the Jack Polian.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like he led the
third team
offense to a touchdown.
Yeah,
he threw that to a walk, and this is no shot at Jack Polian. Jack Polian's a nice little player, but he threw that to a walk-on, Sean. That's my whole point. And threw it, hit him right in the chest. I mean, he was rolling left, had to flip back, pressure's coming around him, and he comes back to his backside read to hit that ball. The throw to Chris Mitchell on the in cut, that was not his number one read. Was not his. It wasn't. It was not his number one read, and that's the thing that was so impressive about how CJ played today. Because to your point, the 21-yard pass, it got him to the 1 yard line. The very next play, they ran read zone from the goal line, and CJ walks into the end zone. So that was his second touchdown. But like it was where was that throw? It was a 17-yard gain to Chris Mitchell, left to right, and it was not his primary read. You saw that it was not his primary read. He goes here and then immediately comes back and hits that in cut. And it was actually pretty well defended. And I think it might have been Jaden Mickey on him. It was pretty well defended. He just put that ball right on. He made Chris Mitchell square up with the throw, and he put it right on Chris Mitchell's between his numbers to where the corner couldn't make a play on the ball.
Right.
And just,
that was good. Good play, good catch, good contest.
Great read, great ball, great catch.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot you can do about that.
Absolutely. But I think the pocket movement, in my opinion, especially from the two young guys, because you talked about the consistent pressure that Kenny stayed, in my opinion, he stayed poised.
He did.
As he saw some early pressure that could have rattled him, but he responded. Yeah. He was cool. Poised. He was cool. And he used it. We saw more mobility from him.
Yes.
Than we saw last year. And
that his senior year of high school.
Absolutely.
Right. That's an encouraging sign. And not just the scrambles, Sean. It was also the sliding away from pressure and stepping into pressure. The one difference between the two of them that I saw is once Kenny got outside, he was looking to run.
Right.
Where CJ did a better job of keeping his, like the one play, you remember this play, Sean? I looked at you. I said, corner's playing this way, safety's playing this way. You throw the go ball right now.
Yeah.
And CJ got pressured. He couldn't throw the go ball because the pressure came, but he rolled left. And Cam didn't know what to do. Cam was like in no man's land, and CJ points right. He goes, boom. And Cam, as soon as CJ pointed, Cam broke off his route, came back, and CJ threw it. Cam catches on the sideline for a 17-yard gain. Like, that's a freshman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a freshman doing that, Sean. And look, CJ's still a work in progress like every freshman, but that was a throw. That was a throw you looked at, but like that was an impressive.
And that's something we saw from both, which is youth, right? Kenny and CJ. Opportunities pre-snap where both of us are sitting there like, okay, that's the read.
Right.
Let's get to your back foot, let it ride.
And Sean, that's what was so disappointing about Kenny Minchie's performance. Not his fault, but because of the pressure from the defense. We didn't get it. Because one thing I've been told about Kenny since they landed him was this kid's, and we didn't hear this. I'm not talking about from Notre Dame people. I'm talking about from people at the Elite 11. Like, this kid on the board is the smartest kid we had at the Elite 11 this year. Like, this kid understands. But you just never got a chance to see Kenny go through his progressions because he never had time to get to his second progression because of the offensive line just wasn't giving him time.
Yeah.
But, to your point, he still he didn't put up great numbers today, but the throws he made allowed them to go on scoring drives. I mean, he led them on a touchdown drive, and it wasn't. There was like when you look at that particular drive, Sean, it wasn't like Kenny made any bomb throws, but it just was like, little check here, riding out his inside zone action to freeze that backside end to not crash on the inside zone. Reading the flat defender appropriately and getting downfield. And that's why I also wish Micah Gilbert would have competed for that go ball better, because that should have been a touchdown pass by Kenny. That was a great ball.
That was a great ball. Great ball. So like you said, you're talking about the level of play by our two youngsters. And we said this as we walked out of the stadium. Like, we could sit here and critique, say all that, like whatever you want to say, you pick and choose. Whoever you pick and choose to be
Right.
the floor in that quarterback room,
You had a good room.
and you got a darn good room.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't care how it plays out. I feel good about however it plays out. Like, you have your preferences.
You're talking
I'm
about
sitting
the two
here.
youngers?
No, I'm just sitting here saying.
Or well, I'm just clear. Are you talking about the two younger guys? You don't care how it plays out, or the whole all three?
No. I mean, you can pick both. I don't care how it plays
that's
out.
what I'm saying is, when you say you don't care how it plays out, are you talking about between the two young guys or all three of them?
As far as this season,
in either,
I have a preference. Like, I have a preference that, like, I think Notre Dame, of course, that's including the guy that didn't play today.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, take him out of the equation.
Yeah, if I'm taking him out of the equation, for me, it doesn't change. Like, I don't want to preheat the oven too fast for CJ. Like, if CJ in the middle of the season is ready to go, fine. Do I want him to start the very first game? No, I don't. That's
I get that. My question was, you said you don't care how it plays out. I'm simply looking for clarification. Are you talking about between Kenny and CJ, or between Kenny, CJ, and Steve?
I'm trusting the staff for what's best.
Okay.
I don't care. I have a team that I know.
I'm with you when it comes to the two younger guys. I don't care how it plays out between Kenny and CJ.
Going into the regular season, you can win with that quarterback. A decision has to be made a la Clemson. What do we need to do to win it?
Right.
That's
why I
can be
care.
made in season.
That's why I care the decision that's made, because you said it to me perfectly in the press box. Steve could be your Kelly Bryant.
Absolutely.
You can beat him. You're so much more talented than everybody you played. You can get to that level, but you are not getting past the first round.
Not beating Alabama in that.
And that's why I say is, I do think the decision matters to me. Now, why I was trying to get clarification is because if you're talking about between Kenny and CJ, I agree with you. I don't care which one of those wins that job, because I think they both have special arm talent. I do. Yeah. I think they both have special minds. The thing that CJ and Kenny both have been praised for when they were in high school and since they've been to Notre Dame is their ability to process mentally.
Yes.
Right? You need that. If you're not going to have a 6'6" big-armed guy or a Lamar Jackson, Riley Leonard, Jaden Daniels, like some kind of guy that's just a dynamic playmaker. If you're not going to have one of those two things, I need a great processor.
Yeah.
I need a great point guard. I need a talent. I don't want a point guard that's smart. Like, I'm going to say this to make fun of you, Sean, a little bit. I don't want Billy Donovan at Providence as my point guard. Yes, he was good for Rick Pitino. He could get you to the Final Four, but when he got to the Final Four, you were going to get out-athleted. I can take a John Stockton point guard.
You know what I mean? You can look at the championship game. Braden Smith is fine for the Big Ten.
Right.
But when he goes up against Newton
and that's Castle, my thing, right? Like, I need a point guard that is talented. And that, to me, is why there is a difference between Kenny and CJ and then Steve, is because Steve's a great kid. He's smart. He's got swagger. But there are limitations to him as a player that you don't have with Kenny and CJ.
Facts.
And that's why I do care. And don't, it can be easy sometimes to take the third-year guy that knows the offense and has the moxie, and the locker room loves him. I get all that. But you're not winning a title with that guy.
Yeah, so basically we're basically discussing the backup, right?
Right. Well, no, because why are we talking about that? Because your starter right now can't play because of an injury.
Right.
And he plays an aggressive style of play where you're always whether it's Riley Leonard, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson when he was at Louisville, whatever the case may be, when you have that kind of player quarterback, you're always one hit away from having to go something else.
Right.
And that's why it especially matters, but it also matters because whoever that guy is now goes into next spring in pole position to be the dude. in 2025.
Yeah.
And that's my whole thing is like why it matters to me is I hope, knock on wood, that neither Kenny nor CJ nor Steve have to start a single game this season. That's my hope.
That would be the perfect world.
Right? But the reason that I think it matters to make sure you make that right pick now and in fall camp is because if that moment comes, you got to give your team the best chance to go win a championship. But it also puts you in position to say, okay, are you truly going to build around this guy and get this guy the necessary reps in practice as the number 2 and in games as number 2 to get him ready to be your dude in 25? Because if Notre Dame, I'm just going to be honest with you, if Notre Dame makes a decision this year to go with the veteran because he gives us the best chance to come off the bench and rally to a victory, then you're going to basically, we're going to be back to square one next spring, and you're going to be looking for a portal guy again. Because what's the mantra going to be, Sean? Well, these guys don't have enough experience. They haven't played enough. I don't want to hear that next year. Whoever of those 2 young guys proves to be the better guy, give that guy every opportunity to win that number 2 job. That's my point. And today was a perfect example of that. Is some of this confirmation bias to a degree? Yes. But my bias comes from evaluating the film.
Yeah.
And seeing the limitations that one guy has compared to the other 2. And that's why, to me, it does matter. And today was a perfect example. And that's why I'm still – the one disappointment I have, as I said, is that we didn't get a chance to see CJ or Kenny get to do some of the things that CJ was able to because he didn't have time.
They didn't have time.
So
yeah. But I think the one thing I did like is the way they started practice and how they mixed things up, not just at quarterback, but even at receiver. And even on the last drive wasn't given to one guy. It was 2 plays for CJ. Then I think it was 2 plays for Kenny. And then it was Steve that came in. Or was it 3 plays for each? It was either 2 or 3 plays.
Yeah, before the last drive.
It
was 3 for CJ.
Yeah.
He had and on that one, he had the miss. So CJ's went. He had the miss read, the Deion Colsey, the good read, but the bad ball. Then they ran counter for a play, and then on the next play got sacked, and it was like it overwhelmed him.
Yeah.
And Kenny came in, and they basically ran the ball 3 times. Now, they had a pass play called on 2nd and 5, but that's the one where Kenny made the correct pre-snap check. He saw that they were going to crash the backside.
Yeah.
And they were going to come off. They were bringing pressure off both edges on 2nd and 5. Kenny saw it. He made a check, immediately brought the tight end down. And then the defense adjusted by bringing another guy down. And Kenny then brought in the slot receiver, and they ran right inside the double blitz.
Yeah.
And that was the best mental thing we saw from Kenny all day.
Yeah.
And one of the few times we got a chance to really see him do that. But there was like another play. He hit the hitch route to KK Smith, allowed KK to square it up, get the 10 yards on a 4-yard down the field throw. We just didn't get a chance to see him do enough of the post-snap, go to your number 3. I can't think of a single snap where Kenny would have had time to find his 3rd guy like CJ did.
Yeah.
I can't think of one.
That second to last series you're talking about, that was when they went forward on 4th down, I believe, and they got the turnover on downs. It was the bad.
No, they did. Yeah, they went forward on 3rd and 1.
Didn't
get it.
Didn't get it. And then snap. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, and that was actually a pretty good recovery on that play because the ball got snapped into the ground. Kenny got it, lifted it up, and got the handoff. They would have if the snap would have been good, they'd have moved the chain.
The 1st down. Yeah.
But I think it was more of a 3-and-3. Yeah. I don't know that it was a full series or not because otherwise why not go for it on 4th and inches or even measure? I thought it was close enough to first down.
Yeah.
And Steve came in, incomplete pass, 3-yard scramble on an RPO, incomplete pass, scramble, and then I think wasn't there a penalty, and that's what got him the 1st down?
Was that the?
No, I'm trying to remember how they got the 1st down. But then you hit a corner route. He hit a corner route to Jaden Greathouse, which was his best ball of the day. He hit a little 10-yard completion on an option cut to Jaden Greathouse where he had that was the play where Cooper Flanders was open up the seam. And then you had a 5-yard scramble by Steve that probably would have been a sack. That was the one where Boubacar that was probably a sack, and they let Steve run with it. And then they ran inside zone next play, and then the next play they threw the sprint out play, and Steve threw it right to Jalen Snead's chest.
Yes.
So that's kind of how it played out today. But the thing that you and I talked about, Sean, at the end of the day, you know what we realized is Notre Dame, and this is the point you were making. And now that I think we're on the same page, because you're saying if I read you correctly, you don't care how it plays out between the two younger guys. We're on the same page there. And today was a chance for us to kind of see CJ play in that moment and Kenny play in that moment, and just watching them throw it. I mean, you guys have a thing on your show, we spin it different.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I say whenever I see Kenny and CJ. They just spin it different. And I'm talking about something completely spinning something completely different. But when you just watch those kids throw, the arm speed, the release, everything is fast with them. It just comes out fast. It gets on the receivers fast. And it's just different, man. There's just a different level of talent. And it's not a knock on the other kid. He's a great kid. The locker room loves him. The team loves him, and that's all fine and dandy. But this isn't a homecoming king thing. This is a championship football thing.
He's a great Notre Dame story.
Yes, he is.
Like, if you really go into who he was last spring and who he is today, and who he still has play that he can get better at, especially when it comes to, like we talked about, pre-snap, post-snap, being more efficient and being comfortable being who you are and playing your game.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be good enough to win college football games. I'll say, and I think why I said I don't care how it plays out in the beginning, I don't. Mm-hmm. Because eventually I know the two younger guys, I don't think he can hold them off.
But they need the work.
And they're getting the blessing work of Riley Leonard not being there. Is that they're getting, especially CJ.
Now they're getting
more work. Absolutely.
Yes. But
absolutely.
When we get I'm talking about when they get in the fall.
Yeah.
And you've got your 1 and your 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's where they're going to need that work.
That is.
But there's some final takeaway, Sean. Boy, there's some talent in the quarterback room, the running back room, the receiver room, the tight end room, the O-line room, the D-line room, the linebacker room, the corner room. Safety still a little bit of a question mark, but we're waiting on some kids to show up. But but that's also a position where you might have your best defensive player on your football team right now. You know what I mean? So that's the fun part about what we saw today, Sean. We did have a couple super chats I want to get to before we get out of here, Sean. We had one from God's Thumbs. Thank you so much for the super chat. Do you think Benjamin Morrison would sit if there's nothing to play for but a mid-tier bowl a la Kyle Hamilton? Would he sit out the bowl game? Yes, I think he would sit out the bowl game. Do I think that he would sit out the season like Kyle did? I don't think so, because he's in a different situation than Kyle. Kyle was considered a lock to be a top 10 or 15 pick. Benjamin needs next season to force himself into being a top 10 or 15 pick. It's a completely different situation. So that would surprise me a little bit. Now, if Benjamin plays, 10 games and he's an All-American and he has an injury that, and they're 7-3, sure, I can maybe see that. But it's a different situation.
Cal was by far the best safety in the class, and Benjamin
right, exactly.
He's in a competitive class.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And so that could be the difference when you're getting picked 8th and getting picked 29th.
Mm-hmm.
And you need those games to do that. Kyle was not going to get out of the top 15.
No.
I mean, him falling to 14 was considered a shock.
Yeah.
And I think part of it was the fact that he sat out half the season. I do. Because if you really think about it, Kyle Hamilton had one full season of college football as a starter. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was 2020.
Yeah.
And so it's different circumstances. But no, I don't think that would be the case. But hopefully we're not talking about hopefully we never have to find out, because we're not even talking about Benjamin not getting hurt again, because I don't want that. But if we're talking about Notre Dame being a mid-tier bowl midway through the season, that would be disappointing. Yeah. But here's the other thing. He said nothing left to play for but a mid-tier bowl a la Kyle Hamilton. Notre Dame played the freaking Fiesta Bowl that year, guys. That was not a mid-tier bowl. That's what kind of bothered me about Kyle's decision, is like Notre Dame at the time was still competing for something.
Yeah.
They were, what was it? Baylor beating Oklahoma State away from possibly being a college football playoff team that year. Kyle sat out with Notre Dame having a chance at the playoff. They finished 5th. That's a different animal than what happened with, because it was Notre Dame needed, wasn't it? No, they needed Oklahoma State to beat Baylor,
Right.
and they needed the SEC title game, I think, to go the opposite way.
Go a certain way. Yep.
Yeah, I think it was like they needed Georgia to beat Bama.
Yeah.
Because that would have been loss number 2 for Bama. They'd have been out.
Yep.
And then the Big 12 game went the way they needed it to, if I remember correctly. And then, of course, Bama got smoked by Georgia.
Right.
No, it would have been loss number 2 for Georgia in 2021. No. Bama won the title game. It would have been loss number. Hold on a second. This is going to bother me.
Georgia won the title game.
Bama, but it'd have been loss number 2 for Bama, right?
I think so.
It would have been loss number 2 for Bama.
Yeah,
I think. Yes, because Bama lost to A&M that year. That's right. So it would have been loss number 2 for Bama. Georgia was undefeated. They would have been in the playoff. It'd have been Georgia, Michigan, Cincinnati, and then Notre Dame or Baylor, if I remember correctly. And then when Oklahoma State won, that helped. And then, of course, the SEC title game didn't play. Or it might have been they needed Baylor to beat Oklahoma State. I'd have to go back and look at that one again. But they needed the Big 12 game. No, they needed Baylor to beat Oklahoma State. Because Baylor had 2 losses. Oklahoma State had 1.
Mm-hmm.
No, that can't be right. Yeah, they needed. That's what they needed. And then that's exactly what happened. Baylor beat Oklahoma State to give them a second loss. That's what happened. I remember now. They needed Baylor to beat Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma State to beat Baylor.
Because that was Oklahoma State got tackled at the half-yard line.
Yes, they needed Baylor to beat Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And that happened. And you are correct. It happened like guy got tackled. And then they needed Georgia to beat Bama.
Yeah.
And they would have been in the playoff.
Yeah.
And Kyle Hamilton decided that wasn't enough for him to come back and play for. But it is what it is. It's worked out well for him. He's having a heck of an NFL career. And the reality is Notre Dame would have gone to the playoff that year and got smoked. I mean, it's not like if Kyle would have played and they would have made the playoff, they'd have had a shot to win because of Kyle. They got smoked by whoever they would have played. Because it would have been Georgia. They would have got in as the 4 seed. They'd have played Georgia, I believe, in round 1. Right? That was not going to go well.
Yeah.
Garen Nuts with a super chat. Thank you, Garen. During past blue gold games, some of the young QBs did not wear red, i.e. Tyler Buckner 2021, Angeli in 22-23. Will Freeman have any young QBs not wear red for the blue gold game? What are the benefits to both sides of the ball when we do this? Well, Sean, what are your thoughts on this? Quarterbacks wearing red in the spring game.
Look, I don't want my quarterbacks touched at all until it's time to rock and roll. That's just me. I am very, when it comes to the quarterback, if you want them to go live, I mean, it's football, man. They can wear a red jersey and take a wrong step and twist the ankle, mess up a knee. So, you do your best you can to protect your quarterbacks. And I think either way, I think the discussion is going to be, hey, take care of each other, which was one of the best things to come out of today's practice. Like, everyone seemingly came out healthy going into the blue and gold. So,
I'm a little different. I don't care about veteran quarterbacks and showing me anything in a blue gold game. I don't need to see Riley Leonard, even if he was 100% healthy, wearing anything but a red jersey. I don't. Same with Sam Hartman last year. I didn't need to see Jack Cohn getting hit. I think in a situation where you've got younger players like Kenny, CJ, and Steve to a degree, I think they kind of need that knowledge that I can get hit.
Yeah.
This is, again, I can get tackled. Look, reality is quarterbacks are a little more likely to step in and throw a ball with pressure coming when they know they can't get hit. Right? So how do we know that some of those great throws CJ made today, he would have still made if he knew he could get hit between the numbers?
Jersey. Yeah.
He may have. I'm saying we don't know. That's the whole point. We don't know that.
And it might sped him up a little more.
Right. Maybe he makes a mistake. Maybe he sails the ball. And that's why I think it's good to have those type of moments because, let's see what he can do. Now, what I would say is when they get in space, I'd blow a quick whistle. But in the pocket, I'd want to kind of take the red jersey off and let him play a little bit. And what it does for the defense is it can create some bad habits. I mean, you get used to kind of running by the quarterback and taking a wider angle and patting him on the butt instead of teaching them the things they need to do. I mean, you don't think Al Washington's group needs to have practice on strip sacks? You know what I mean? Like, so I'm a former quarterback. I want to see them play, even if it's just for the first half. And then second half, you put the red jersey on. I still want to see it. But that's my 2 cents on it. And then we also had a super chat from Ryan Elliott. Ryan, thank you very, very much for that. So, Sean, that's going to do it for today's show, man.
Oh,
you got something else?
We got to give love to Josiah Kia. He had a big time play too.
No, it was Kahanu Kia.
Was it Kahanu? I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
I said Josiah.
He missed the tackle, but man, he flew downhill on that play.
Yes, he did.
He showed me a little bit of quickness on it. Yes, you were correct. We forgot about Kahanu on that play. And this is a kid that hasn't played football in 2 years.
Right. And this is like third string,
right.
Ladies and gentlemen.
he flew downhill, man. That was impressive.
It's some athleticism on this.
Anybody else that we didn't mention today?
No, I think we mentioned. I think we both. You mentioned Sullivan. I think Sullivan Absher really stood out in the run game, second half of practice.
Did you see they had him at guard on that last series with the twos?
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yes.
They flipped him and Ty Chan. They put Ty Chan out at left tackle and put him at left guard.
Yeah, that was very interesting. Yeah.
I'm not going to read into it any more than that. Just leave it at that. Just leave it at that.
I see the smile already coming through.
I said in the show the other day with Ryan, I was like, man, I would love someday to see a left side of the line of Charles Jagasaw and Sullivan Absher, man. That would be
talk about big boys.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it for today's show, everybody. Thank you all for being with us today. We'll be back on Monday. I believe, Sean, you and Ryan are going to be doing a recruiting hour on Monday because we have the big visits this weekend. So you definitely want to check that out. Make sure you sign up for the message boards. I got that team intel last night. Ryan's going to start getting in tonight or tomorrow. Some recruiting updates as well from the weekend, plus my breakdown of the today's practice. So definitely check that out at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Hit that like, folks. Hit the subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Share this podcast. Give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate all that good stuff. And again, if you haven't done so, I'm telling you, the boards, if you're not on them, you're missing out. Sean's on them. I'm obviously on them. A lot of people in the chat are on them. But if you're not on them, I'm telling you guys, you're missing out. And it's a great way for you to support what we're doing at Irish Breakdown. So have a great rest of your Saturday, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll talk to you all again very, very soon on the Irish Breakdown podcast.